guys, it's Piper. So I thought I would hop on here and go over the Joseph Ryan situation. Joseph Ryan was the ex-husband of Lori Vallow. And Lori Vallow and he divorced, I think, about 10 years ago. About a year, shortly before Joseph Ryan's death, someone tried to take a shot at him as he was getting out of his car at his home. He had just moved into this new home, and there were only very few people who knew where he was, one of which was his estranged wife, Melanie Boudreau. I'm sorry, that's incorrect. I'm getting two stories mixed together. Joseph Ryan and um, Lori Vallow got a divorce, and he was tased at one point by Alex Cox, and did get in trouble for that, but apparently all the charges were dismissed. And so he is currently passed away. He passed away under some kind of odd circumstances. I've got lots of videos to show you tonight, so this may be a long video. I hope it's not super long. I am going to start with the news or the information that has been released to the media regarding this situation. And so a lot of these I'm taking off. They can be found elsewhere, but a lot of them I took off a channel called, let's see, where is it? Breaking Crime with Big E. So I will put his link in my chat here as soon as I start. Well, I'll put his link in the chat, and then I'll put his link in the description after the video is published, so that people can find it. The first video that we are going to listen to is a interview of a friend, an ex-friend of Lori, that Lori told her, eventually Joe Ryan will die for what he has done. So this video is 15 minutes long, and since I'm on Restream, I have never shared my screen on here. I've never used it, this program whatsoever. So bear with me as I try to figure it out. Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and get this video started. If you are just coming in and have missed kind of the introduction, I think you'll still be able to figure out what's going on. This is about the Lori Vallow case, and this is in regard to her ex-husband who died under mysterious circumstances. Hopefully the audio works too. Before I start this, let me pull it up on my phone so I can make sure I can hear it. Okay, I'm going to mute myself and then play this video. Hi, AJ. Okay, I'm going to mute myself. Oops. And then play this video. Hi, AJ. Sorry. I'm trying to mute this. Okay. Let's see. An answer to your question in the title, my answer is yes, in my humble opinion. I agree too. Chris G? Like the Chris G? I haven't seen you in forever. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited to see you here. I believe she had a hand too. All right. I don't really need your help there, buddy. Okay, so let me see if I can close this. All right. Customize logo. No thanks. All right, here we go.
January 7th, 2020. It's approximately 12:39 p.m.
Hello?
Hi, can I speak with Angeline, please?
This is she.
Hey, Angeline. My name's Cassandra Inclon. I am a detective with Chandler PD in Arizona. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Okay. Today's my Monday, but getting back into the swing of things for the week. I don't know if you might have any idea why I might be calling you.
I'm guessing the Lori stuff.
That's a pretty good guess. So I work in persons crimes in our department, and our agency and a couple other agencies obviously have a lot of things going on right now. I don't know if you've seen any of the news coverage.
Yeah, I've been trying to pull up the one today. I try to keep updated on all of it.
I don't blame you. So are we.
Oh, heck, yeah.
So one of the purposes in calling you is I'm trying to reach out to people that obviously knew Lori, may have known Charles, know Chad Daybell, had been around any of them with their families and things along those lines, and just kind of go from there. And it sounds like that you may have been friends with her when she lived in Hawaii.
Yeah, we were like best friends, kind of inseparable for about 2.5 years when we lived out there.
And that was
Charles.
She lived there with Charles, right?
Uh-huh, yeah.
And did you know her?
JJ and Tylee, yeah.
Okay. And did you know her prior to her moving to Hawaii, or is that when you guys met?
No, we actually met in Hawaii.
Okay. And then, obviously, she moved. Did you guys stay in contact at all, or?
We talked like one time I would say it was a little over a year ago. We talked for a little while, but it was kind of weird. After I left Hawaii first, and then she left about a week, or I think it was maybe a couple of weeks after.
Okay.
And then, we really didn't, I thought we'd talk all the time, but we didn't talk very often after we both left.
And then, so she at one point had, in February, had gone back to Hawaii with Tylee. You had already moved at that point, correct? So you weren't there when she was there?
Yeah, she went and saw one of our friends out there in February.
So the last time that you talked to her was maybe a little over a year ago?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what was going on with her at the time?
Definitely did not know any of this. I mean, we just had simple conversations, kind of caught up, and She invited me to go out there and go boating. I mean, she really didn't let on to any problems about anything.
Okay.
And, I mean, really, it was more of when we lived in Hawaii, she said some kind of off the wall stuff that I never thought would happen. And then here we are. So
What was that?
I don't know.
What was the off?
Sorry, what was that?
What was the off the wall stuff that she said?
Oh,
Hey, AJ, thank you for letting me know no audio. I tried to change it to where it was just the actual Chrome window. Oh, I didn't add it to the stream. That would probably be why. Let's add it to the stream. There we go. That might. Oh my God! I asked this person. Wish this person would stop. Let's try this again, but let me rewind it a little bit. The other thing is that this audio is not the, this audio is not the best. It's easier to understand the person that's being interviewed than it is to hear the person who is doing the interviewing. Hi, Anon Anon. So let me try this again. Sorry about that. This is my first time using Restream. Hi, Amber. Welcome. Okay, let me play this.
we lived in Hawaii. She said some kind of off the wall stuff that I never thought would happen. And then here we are. So I don't know.
What was the off?
Sorry, what was that?
What was the off the wall stuff that she said?
Oh, kind of what's going on now. She believed in the end of the world and that everyone's going to die, and she was preparing for it. And she talked about driving off a cliff with her and the kids, and she would kind of say stuff like that. But if you knew Lori, she would just kind of would say crazy stuff sometimes you would never expect it to happen.
Did you know that, or I mean, I don't know, or did she mention anything prior to her moving?
So, where did I see? Amber said can't hear it. The volume for the person asking questions is really low. The volume for the person answering the questions you can hear much better. But are you able to hear either one of them? Oh, you can hear it? Okay. Okay. And I'll just double check the volume again. Yeah, it's all the way up. My computer is all the way up. Let me check the app volume. Sometimes that does something funny. Okay, and that one's all the way up. So I think we're as good as we're going to get.
From Hawaii, any issues with Charles or anything?
Towards the end, she kind of was really ornery and rude to him.
Oh, good. Glad you can hear
she
now.
never really said anything about wanting to get divorced with him, but she did make a comment before about, I can't get divorced again. I've already had 4 other, he's my 4th husband, I can't get another divorce. So she would say some kind of weird stuff, like she'd just have to get rid of him. But again, this is stuff that you're thinking someone's just talking crap, and now you're like, oh my heck.
And then did you know anything about Kylie's dad, Joe?
Well, Lori had told me before that, and I don't know. I've tried seeing if her brother really did go to jail for this, but they haven't talked about it on the news. So Lori had said before that she hired her brother to kill Joe because of stuff he did to him. She said that he sexually assaulted the kids, and they went to court for years over it, and nothing happened. And then supposedly he went to jail for it. That's what she had told me. And then she said eventually Joe's going to die for what he did.
Okay.
And she's like, people don't get away with stuff like that.
So she says that Lori said eventually Joe's going to die for what he did. I wish I had the dates that these conversations took place, especially in relation to when Joseph Ryan actually did die. We will, in this video, get into the circumstances surrounding his death. And also we'll take a look at the crime scene photos at his home. Well, I guess it's not crime scene photos since they didn't claim that it was a crime. I believe they are possibly thinking down that line of possibilities now, but at the time they weren't. However, they did still take some photographs, thankfully. And I think on this other interview, once you hear it from Annielytics, it's really disturbing. It sounds like what happened was Joseph Ryan had passed away and had been in his apartment for almost 2 weeks. And Lori, and so he was not in the best of shape, let's say that. Lori took their daughter over there to where her father, Lori's daughter's father, had passed away, and the whole apartment smelled of decaying flesh. In fact, it was so bad, they rummaged through all of his stuff and took a bunch of stuff. And the photo album that they took from there, when his sister opened it, she said it literally smelled like a rotting corpse. It was that bad. And she took Tylee in there. That was her dad. The bed, the mattress was still in there, and all of his body fluids from after his death had seeped into the mattress. And Tylee saw that too. I mean, it's just unbelievable. All right, we'll finish with this. Again, this entire video is only 15 minutes long.
And you're just, she would just claim she had gone off the wall and gone crazy because of what he did to him. And I don't know if any of that's true.
Well, so when she had told you this, it was at a time when Joe was still alive.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was actually an incident in Texas with Joe and Alex, and we do know about that, and he did get arrested. So
okay. So it was true, everything she said.
Well, I don't. Proving that she hired her brother to do it would be one thing, because that's not what either of them said to the police. But there's this kind of statement floating around out there that Lori had said this, so we didn't know when that statement happened, if it was actually because of the incident in Texas or it was relating to Joe's actual death here, because Joe passed away here in Arizona. So
right. No, it was from a lot of years ago. I mean, I don't even really know anything. I don't even remember the story she told me, something about throwing him in the trunk. Actually, I can't even tell you.
That's your
I didn't really take anything seriously, so obviously I should have.
Well, I mean, it's like you said, you go through kind of life, and now you're looking back at all of this with the luxury of seeing what's been on the news and talking to other friends and things along those lines. So, if the old adage, if I only knew then what I know now type thing. So, I mean, obviously you knew her and you were good friends with her and you saw her, as a wife and a mom and everything like that. And as far as like the news footage you've seen and stuff, what do you think? I guess and I have spoken with her. I have met her before, but I'm interested as to what you think.
Oh, you have spoken to Lori before?
I spoke with her on the day that Charles was killed here in Chandler. So wow. I have met her and I have spoken with her in the past, not recently.
I don't know. I feel like everything I knew about her is wrong. I don't know. Like, I definitely think there was some sort of deceitful side to her on some of the stuff she'd say. But she was an excellent mom, and she was, kind of went above and beyond to take good care of her kids.
I've heard so many people say she's an excellent mom. You wonder if at one point she really was a good mom and a good wife and a good person. I wonder if she was manipulated by Chad Daybell. Like, maybe she was already kind of going down that road with believing these mystical things that weren't in line with her religion. But then she really just fell for Chad Daybell, hook, line, and sinker, and all of his stories. And, I've noticed something about that group of people, and it's that they believe things. Like, they believe kind of crazy stuff that people tell them. And it's weird. Like, they just really take people's word for it. Oh, I've got a portal in my closet. They just take their word for it. God has spoken with me, and I've got everybody's names down, and I've got them rated from light to dark. And they just take it as matter of fact. It's really strange. And on and on. I agree. Which is the leader in the pack, Lori or Chad? I almost feel like it was Chad, Chris G. I think Lori either poisoned him or used medicine for diabetes. I agree, Chris. Diabetes medication would be really easy to overdose somebody on, and then they're not even finding their body for 2 weeks after the fact. And most of that evidence, I would think, would be gone. Also, Lori wanted to have him cremated just like with the others, Okay. She is very manipulative and sly, I will tell you that.
Kids, and I mean, she always surprised them and would fly Tylee's friends out to Arizona Hawaii from Arizona. So she would have someone to hang out with. She would, make sure JJ had all the special care for his autism. She was really a good mom. And she worked in the primary, and she was so good with all the kids, and she always had, special stuff planned. And so really, when you see kind of all this stuff, it doesn't seem like who she is.
Seems like a different person.
Yeah. And it kind of sounds like that's what happened. Everyone says she changed in the last year or so.
Do you believe, and I'm assuming just because you were close you would know this, so Lori and Charles had adopted JJ from when he was very small, and raised them, and for all intents and purposes, that's their child.
Oh, yeah.
Would there be someone that Lori would give him to? Like, could you think of anybody that she would have keep JJ for her or take care of him?
Well, the only thing I keep wondering, and you guys probably know, I don't know, is what's going on with her niece that
Melanie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a little limited as to what I can talk to you about, but I am aware.
Well,
I am aware of her.
That's the only person I would think, because, we would fly over to Oahu, and we would stay there for the day and make sure we came home at night so that she was home for him. Mm-hmm. So she, as long as I knew her, she never really left JJ overnight unless it was with Charles.
Okay. So pretty dedicated.
Yeah.
Anything else that I didn't ask about? Anything that you think might be important or that I should know about, or anything along those lines? It's a lot, I know.
I know. I go through everything every second trying to think on where the heck she'd be. Mm-hmm. My opinion still is that something to do with his books on when they're talking about the end of the time, in Chad Daybell's books and stuff, they talk about the safest place to be and where all disasters are going to happen and stuff like that. So you really would think that they're going to try to be where they think is the safe spot to be, but I haven't even had time to grab those books and read them again. Mm-hmm. I started and never... She got them for me, and I started and never read them.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of information out there. There's some interesting podcasts and videos and other things. It's been it's been an educational, I guess, kind of experience for some of us as investigators. So, just trying to wade through all the stuff that's out there. So
I think the scariest part is she would say things about the end of the world and about driving off a cliff with the kids, and that's kind of what scares me the most, where everybody's talking about all this stuff going on, and I never thought any of the rest of it would happen, so that's kind of the part that freaks me out the most.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of us in a bunch of different states that all are kind of freaked out too. So that was, the intent is to call and try to talk to as many people as we can. Besides her niece Melanie, can you think of anybody else that was friends with her or close to her, or anybody else that I should reach out to?
No, I think everyone that I knew that she was really close with, I've kind of, at least the one she went and saw in Hawaii, I've been in contact with her, and I know she's just as worried and whatever as I am. So if she was in Hawaii, she would be with her,
Okay. Okay. Well, obviously, if for some reason that she were to reach out, or you think of something, or you come across something, obviously there's quite a few of us that would like to know, but I do appreciate you taking some time to talk to me today.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you, just real quick, and I apologize because I'm not sure, is your last name Law or is it Hall?
It's Law.
Law, okay. And,
Uh-huh.
and you live in Utah now, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
uh-huh.
And what's your date of birth? Awesome. Thank you very much. And like I said, I appreciate you taking some time to talk to me.
Oh, no problem. Anything to find them sweet kids. So
that's the plan. So we're just trying to go through and do as much as we can to see what we can find.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, so that one's over. So we've had a lot of discussion, like who's the ringleader, and people often have differing opinions on that. I tend to lean toward Chad being the ringleader because he was into this whole thing prior to Lori meeting him. And he's the one who really taught her about all of this. He's the one who developed the light dark scale and determined who was dark and who was light. That was all of his doing. He also said and told Lori and the rest of the group that the only way to release these bodies from the torment of being controlled by zombies was for their human body to die, and then they would finally be released and be at peace. So you could, as a delusional mother, maybe believing this, I could see where you may think that you would be doing a good thing for your child if you were just that deluded, you know? So, okay. I do think that there was selfishness involved, though. I think it fit into what she also wanted. And so it made it easier for her to believe and to go along with. So don't get me wrong. She definitely has fault in all this. I question too, why isn't Chad undergoing psychological rehabilitation? Obviously, they find him sound of mind. Obviously, they don't find Lori Vallow sound of mind. So to me, that also implies that maybe he had a little more control over her than might be obvious at first, just because he was more soft spoken and Lori was more out there. All right. So let me pull up the next one. Give me just a second to get to it. Okay, this too is 15 minutes. And I will share my screen. This is from the same channel, from the list or the link that I posted in chat.
January 7th, 2020. It's approximately 10.
Hello, hi, this is Annie.
Hey, my name's Cassandra Inclon. I'm a detective with Chandler PD.
Hey, Cassandra, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
Good.
I hope I don't know what the time change to Hawaii is, but hopefully it's not super early.
No, you're fine. I'm up.
Okay. I had gotten a message that you had called in. I apologize. I left you a message on Friday, and I got pulled out of the office on a different case, so I never made it back into the office on Friday to give you a call back.
No problem. So are you part of the Lori Vallow case on the Chandler side or the Charles Vallow case?
I am.
Okay.
So I am familiar with our case and some of the other stuff going on.
Okay. So they used to live here on Kauai, and I was talking to my brother.
I do. I'm friends with him.
Yeah. So he told me I needed to call and tell you guys something.
Okay.
Which is that she didn't say this to me. I don't think she would have ever said this to me, but she did tell two of our mutual friends that she paid her brother to kill Joe Ryan.
Tylee's dad?
Yeah. So.
And are not to put words in your mouth, because she has two brothers, are you talking about her brother Alex, or?
Alex. Yes, Alex.
Okay. Do you, sorry, I'm taking notes while I talk to you, so.
That's okay.
So she didn't tell you this, but she told two.
She didn't say it to me,
okay.
But she told April Raymond and Angeline Hall that.
And do you know about when she made those statements?
No, Angeline and I talked when all this started happening.
Okay.
Neither of them live on Kauai anymore, so I don't see them anymore.
Okay.
But Angeline reached out to me when everything happened, and she's actually given, one of these, anyway, she talked to Radar Online or something, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But she said to me that Lori had said that she paid Alex to kill Joe.
Okay.
And so later when April and I were talking, I said, Angeline said this, can you believe it? And April said, she said the same thing to me.
Okay.
Lori would kind of say crazy things sometimes.
Anything in particular?
I mean, no, nothing like that. I mean, she never said anything like that to me.
Okay.
But I'm just saying that's why someone could hear something like that and kind of be like, whatever, Lori.
Okay. Do you know what kind of relationship that she had with Joe? I mean, I know a lot of the back history.
I really don't know that much. I mean, when she moved here, Tylee was still living with Joe, and then Tylee came over, I think, a few months later, and then stayed. I know she hated Joe, and she didn't like Joe, and she was happy when he died.
Uh-huh.
She was happy Tylee was getting Social Security for it.
Uh-huh.
She said that Joe had sexually molested Tylee and Colby, which I always found, but anyway, I never knew if that was true or not, but she would tell people that.
Okay.
And she said their sex life wasn't great. That's pretty much all I know.
Okay. And she lived in Hawaii, are you talking, it was like 2016-ish maybe? Is that right?
It was later than that because I was already living here, but I moved to Princeville, I don't know, April or May of 2014.
Okay.
And they moved here pretty soon after I moved to Princeville. They moved to Princeville.
Okay. So
within a month or two.
Okay.
Yeah. And they lived here. I think they lived here for like 2.5 years, but I'm not sure. They've been gone for a while.
Yeah.
But like when Lori came back in February with Tylee, I picked her up from the airport. I mean, we remained friends.
Uh-huh.
And everyone says she's hiding here on Kauai, and a friend of mine saw her.
So when Lori and Tylee came back in February, you picked them up?
Yeah.
Okay. And was JJ with them?
No.
Okay. And was she just visiting, like for vacation, or did she come there and stay a little?
She just called me from the airport. She didn't even tell me she was coming. She just called me from the airport, and she said, "We just landed in the Hui. I'm with Tylee. I've left Charles. I took $50,000 from his bank account, and I'm going to start over."
Okay. Do you know how long she stayed there?
So she stayed in a hotel the first night, and then she stayed with April, my friend April Raymond, who she also said that other thing too. She stayed with April for a while, and April at some point told her she needed to find another place to stay. But I think April says that and so after I picked her up from the airport, she wanted me to use my credit card for a hotel with her, and she said she would pay cash, but I was uncomfortable doing that. So I never saw her again after that.
Okay.
When I said no to that. So even though I was and she would text me back.
She wanted her friend to put the credit card number on her, or put the room on her credit card. There is no way I would do that. It's just really weird, Lori.
Or call me back sometimes, but I would always say, "Hey, let's get lunch, or let's go walk the bay or something," and she was sleeping or busy or whatever.
Okay.
But April says, and April managed a store here, and I know Lori was planning on working at it, but April did not hire her.
Okay.
But she stayed with April for a while and then stayed somewhere else for a while.
Okay.
That's what I know.
And then obviously left. And did you have any contact with her after she left Hawaii?
You know, she barely was even talking to me while she was here.
Okay.
And probably another part of it was, so I had heard from Charles before she called me and said she was at the airport.
Okay.
I mean, I hadn't heard from him a lot, but he had started to call me, and Charles was kind of like a dog with a bone. Like, once he was on something, he was like,
on it.
I liked Charles. I thought he was a nice guy,
Yeah.
but he could be intense about things. And so he had called me and told me all the crazy things that now are being reported, right? And April did say that Lori said a lot of those things to her when she was staying with her. But so I'd heard all this stuff from Charles. I couldn't get a hold of Lori because I learned later her phone number had changed. And then when I picked her up and she was like, "Well, Charles is cheating on me. I'm leaving him." I just didn't really want to be involved between the two of them.
It's a lot. And
yeah.
And it sounds like you were friends with both of them too, so I don't know that I want to be in the middle of it.
Right. So, you know, and I have another brother who's a forensic psychiatrist, and I talked to him about what was going on, and he said, "I think Lori's had a psychotic break." Now, he wouldn't, like, he's not professionally diagnosing her, but just based on what he said. And so when she was here, I really did try to reach out to her because I felt like she needed help.
Yeah.
And I know she doesn't like psychiatrists, but I mean, he was like, she needs to be committed, and the longer she goes on in the state, the worse it will be. So I did try to reach out to her, but I did not want to really be involved with her and Charles and everything else. No,
I don't. I get it. I totally, I'm completely following what you're saying. So.
Yeah.
So.
But John just said you should know that she said this thing about Joe to at least two people.
Yes, it's important. Do you have a way that could you help me get in touch with April and Angeline?
Now, I'm sure Angeline will be happy to talk to you. I don't know how April will feel. I haven't talked to her about this.
Okay.
But April has a crazy ex-husband, so who's taken her to court a lot, so I know she hates stuff like that.
Okay. No, and I get it, and my intention isn't to tell them, like, that obviously you and I spoke, because obviously I would imagine, you seem like a very intelligent lady that with all the media coverage and what's going on, there's a lot of people being contacted that are know Lori and know Charles and other people involved. So it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for me to just kind of randomly call someone and say, hey, you popped up as kind of an associate. I'm wondering, what you can tell me about this and if anything useful or important. So,
I mean, I do think that April would want to kind of like do the right thing. Or, help the kids in any way that she could. April will probably have more information for you than anyone else because she said that Lori tried to recruit her into this
group.
Cult.
Okay.
So April's been in touch with her a lot more than I have more recently, I guess.
Do you have a way that I can get in touch with them?
I do have, I can give you her phone number.
Okay. That would be great.
It's
and that's April
Raymond.
And then do you have a number for Angeline?
Yeah. Angeline will be very talkative.
Okay.
And her
Okay. And are they both in Hawaii?
No, they've both moved.
Okay.
They, Angeline moved before Lori did.
Okay.
She was from Utah and she moved back to Utah.
Okay.
And April's husband sued the hospital here, and it was like big in the news, and she just couldn't take it anymore, so she left.
Okay.
And so she's on the mainland too.
Okay. It just gives me an idea because when I call, I tend to either wake people up or inconvenient times.
I think April left at the beginning of summer.
Okay. All right. I will reach out. And you said that you have a friend that has seen her there recently? Seen Lori there?
So she came, I mean, I've been told that people have reported this, but there's an urgent care right outside of Princeville.
Okay.
That a friend of mine built and runs, and he told me she had been there, and then another friend, Lynn Salvador, she was watching the news, and the story about Lori came on, and she was like, with her family, and she said, oh my gosh, I know her. And, really shocked.
Yes.
And her daughter was with her. Her daughter's a nurse, and her daughter said, she came into the clinic today. I helped her, served her. I don't know what you'd say.
Right.
And she was like, no, that's impossible. And she goes, no, what's her name? And she said, Lori Vallow. And she goes, yeah, that was her. And Chad was with her.
Okay.
But no kids. But I've been told that other people have already reported that. So.
Yeah.
And that was like a week ago, Saturday or Friday.
Okay.
Something like that.
And you have never had any, like I know you said you knew Charles, but you've never had any contact with Chad or ever met him or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
I mean, Lori was kind of into the end of the world stuff, and she had a bunch of books, and I read one of them. But I wasn't as excited about it as she was.
Right. Okay. Anything else that I didn't ask? Go ahead.
So that book might have been something that Chad wrote or something affiliated with, but I don't even remember the name of it, and I never talked to Chad.
Okay. All right. Anything else that I didn't ask about? Anything that might be important or anything?
Not that I can think of. I really just called John and said, you guys should know what she told Angeline in April.
He's absolutely correct. So I appreciate you calling very, very much. So
yeah.
I have a meeting I have to go to real quick, and then I'm going to reach out to both of them. I'm not going to mention that I had spoke with you, so if you guys talk and you want to share that, great. If you don't,
Okay.
then that's fine also, just so you know.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Okay, Ann, thank you. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Okay.
January 7th, 2020. It's approximately 12:39 p.m.
What's going on here? Oh, I see. Hang with me a sec.
January 7th, 2020. It's approximately 10:12 a.m.
Okay. So Joe Ryan. Okay, this one.
It's approximately 10.
I'll play this one for you. Let me mute myself.
12 a.m.
Hey, my name's Cassandra Incon. I'm a detective with Chandler PD. I'm okay. How are you doing?
Good.
I don't know what the time change to Hawaii is, but hopefully it's not super early.
No, you're fine. I'm up.
Okay. I had gotten a message that you had called in. I apologize. I left you a message on Friday, and I got pulled out of the office on a different case, so I never made it back into the office on Friday to give you a call back.
No problem. So are you part of the Lori Vallow case in the Chandler side or the Charles Vallow case?
Wait a minute. No, we haven't heard this
Okay.
one.
I am familiar with our case and some of the other stuff going on.
Okay. So they used to live here
Uh-huh.
on Kauai. And I was talking to my brother.
I do. I'm friends with him.
Yeah. So he told me I needed to call and tell you guys
Okay.
something.
Okay.
Which is that she didn't say this to me. I don't think she would have ever said this to me. But she did tell two of our mutual friends that she paid her brother to kill Joe Ryan.
Tylee's dad?
Yeah. So.
And are not to put words in your mouth, because she has two brothers, are you talking about her brother Alex or?
Alex. Yes, Alex.
Okay.
So she told two separate people that she paid Alex money to kill her ex-husband, Joseph Ryan. And then lo and behold, he turns up dead at the age of 49.
Sorry, I'm taking notes while I talk to you. So,
That's okay.
so she didn't tell you this, but she told two.
She didn't say it to me,
okay.
but she told April Raymond and Angeline Hall that.
And do you know about when she made those statements?
No, Angeline and I talked when all this started happening.
Okay.
Neither of them live on Kauai anymore, so I don't see them anymore.
Okay.
But Angeline reached out to me when everything happened, and she's actually given, one of these, anyway, she talked to Radar Online or something, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But she said to me that Lori had said that she paid Alex to kill Joe.
Okay.
And so later when April and I were talking, I said, Angeline said this, can you believe it? And April said, she said the same thing to me.
Okay.
Lori would kind of say crazy things sometimes.
Anything in particular?
I mean, no, nothing like that. I mean, she never said anything like that to me.
Okay.
But I'm just saying that's why someone could hear something like that and kind of be like, whatever, Lori.
Okay. Do you know what kind of relationship that she had with Joe? I mean, I know a lot of the back history.
I really don't know that much. I mean, when she moved here, Tylee was still living with Joe, and then Tylee came over, I think a few months later, and then stayed. I know she hated Joe, and she didn't like Joe, and she was happy when he died.
Mm-hmm.
She was happy Tylee was getting Social Security for it.
Mm-hmm.
She said that Joe had sexually molested Tylee and Colby, which I always found, but anyway, I never knew if that was true or not, but she would tell people that.
Okay.
And she said he was, like, their sex life wasn't great. That's
Okay.
pretty much all I know.
Okay. And she lived in Hawaii, are you talking, it was like 2016-ish maybe? Is that right?
It was later than that because I was already living here, but I moved to Princeville, I don't know, April or May of 2014.
Okay.
And they moved here pretty soon after I moved to Princeville. They moved to Princeville.
Okay. So
within a month or two.
Okay.
Yeah. And they lived here. I think they lived here for like 2.5 years, but I'm not sure. They've been gone for a while.
Yeah.
But like when Lori came back in February with Tylee, I picked her up from the airport. I mean, we remained friends.
Uh-huh.
And everyone says she's hiding here on Kauai, and a friend of mine saw her.
So when Lori and Tylee came back in February, you picked them up?
Yeah.
Okay. And was JJ with them?
No.
Okay. And was she just visiting, like for vacation, or did she come there and stay a little?
You know,
bit?
She just called me from the airport. She didn't even tell me she was coming. She just called me from the airport, and she said, "We just landed in the Hui. I'm with Tylee. I've left Charles. I took $50,000 from his bank account, and I'm going to start over."
Okay. Do you know how long she stayed there?
So she stayed in a hotel the first night, and then she stayed with April, my friend April Raymond, who she also said that other thing too. She stayed with April for a while, and April at some point told her she needed to find another place to stay. But I think April says that and so after I picked her up from the airport, she wanted me to use my credit card for a hotel with her, and she said she would pay cash, but I was uncomfortable doing that. So I never saw her again after that.
Okay.
When I said no to that. So even though I was and she would text me back or call me back sometimes, but I would always say, "Hey, let's get lunch, or let's go walk the bay or something," and she...
Oh, shoot. This sounds like the same one I had up there.
Whatever.
Okay.
But April says, and April managed a store here, and I know Lori was planning on working at it. But
I don't know if that was the same interview or not. It's very similar, but when I go back and look at them, they're two different videos. So, that's weird. But Anon, I don't know if they're looking at the death penalty or not. My understanding is they're looking at it at least for Chad, but I don't know if anything has been announced on Lori yet with her situation. So I don't know. Have you guys heard of Annielytics? Annie Cushing runs a YouTube channel called Annielytics. She is, her wheelhouse is data, and she is the sister of Ryan, Joseph Ryan, who was murdered. And she has some really interesting stuff. I'm not going to play her entire video. It's very, very long. But I did want to kind of show you a couple things. So let me get over there. Let me get this one. Stop sharing this screen. Yes, for JJ and Tylee Anon, they have not, my understanding is they haven't determined anything on Tammy yet, although I think those charges are coming. I've even heard whisperings that Melanie Pulowski or Melanie Bedreau, Lori's niece, may be for facing some charges. So I think it's going to get bigger. Oops, didn't mean to turn on my camera. Sorry, guys. Meant to stop sharing my screen. Okay, let me stop sharing this screen and let me find the other one. And hold on. I'll let her do her little introduction here so you know.
Hey guys, I don't know why my video isn't working. So I am just going to share my screen. Of course, everything worked just fine when I tested multiple times today. You don't need to see my face anyway. Okay, can someone just let me know in the chat? Oh, I see it up. Can you guys hear me? As soon as I get a confirmation,
I will kick this into the far left lane. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So can you guys hear me? Yes. Okay. Awesome. All right. So tonight, let me throw this into full screen mode. So tonight we are going to take yet another deep dive into my brother, Joe Ryan. You might be thinking, why? We already talked about him. In fact, if you want to check out that live I did, I created this playlist. You can go to bit.ly/LV-case to access all of the videos about this case. And my brother's is in there. Let's talk Joseph Ryan. So why am I doing another one? Well, I guess it was about almost 2 weeks ago, a friend of mine, and this was just an industry friend. I don't think he was like following the case very closely, if at all. But he lobbed this over the fence at me. And he came across this article, and it was all about, what do you mean? And I said, yeah, it was based on an external examination. And he said they didn't open him up. And I said, no. And so, I mean, this was one person's opinion, but he said, well, he was largely based on an external examination. Particular episode, and one of them was an ME. And so we were all chatting before we went live, and I said something about the autopsy, and I don't know how it came about, but I said, well, yes, except, I mean, the autopsy was largely based on an external examination. And, you know, there was like all this like kind of cross chatter and stuff. And he was like, wait, what do you mean? And I said, yeah, it was based on an external examination. And he said they didn't open him up. And I said, no. And so, I mean, this was one person's opinion, but he said, well, then it shouldn't have been ruled natural. If they didn't open him up, it should have been ruled unknown. You know, cause unknown. And the profiling evil guys, love them. They also brought on an Emmy, and she had an interesting take. She said that, and I'm going to be really quoting her very loosely, but basically, in a case like this, where there's a protracted custody battle, and there are kind of psychographic, you know, signals that, you know, not everything was as it should have been, that will oftentimes warrant, in and of itself, that will warrant an investigation. And so, neither of these were taken into account. There was this external examination, and they did test his blood, and they looked at his medical history and the meds that he had in his apartment and ruled it natural. But also, no one was asking about him. They couldn't track down any family members. I've talked about that pretty extensively. So another thing that I just noticed this week that I had never noticed before, this was in the summary of the incident report from the day that Joe was found, which was April 3rd, 2018, ironically our father's birthday. But it said there was no evidence of trauma or suspicions for foul play. So I also wondered if that could have played a part in the ME just saying, well, I think this is a pretty open and shut case. Joe was 59. He was overweight at the time, not by a lot, but according to their estimation, he was overweight and had a history of heart issues. And our family does have a history of heart issues. But I just wonder how much, I had never seen this before. Once again, shout out to Garna. I didn't remember that she had sent me the full incident report. So I only had 6 pages and the full incident report is actually 12. So I also shared that in the group. Yeah, all right. I put this in here so that it would trigger me what my point was, and then I forgot what it was anyway. So one of the things that I've said this so many times. I have no medical training. I have no training in law enforcement. I have nothing except just a crap ton of grit to chase this down. But having said that, one of the things that I noticed in the pictures, and there's only been one person who has seen the graphic pictures, and I only say her name, Janice, just so that I never want to be in a position where, or I rarely want to be in a position where people have to believe me, where they just have to, trust that I'm telling the truth and I'm not allowing emotion to just carry me away and, cut corners on this. But in the pictures where Joe was on the bed, and this might be a little triggering. So if you have a sensitive stomach, please, hit pause, hit mute. I'll be finished in less than 2 minutes. In the pictures where Joe is on the mattress, so before they remove him, there is definitely blood. You can see it in the areas of the picture that aren't covered by these white squares. But when his body is no longer on the mattress, it is saturated. I don't want to be grotesque, but it was pretty clear that it looked as if, just judging by the difference in the state of the mattress, that he had essentially imploded. That might not be the best word, but Lori also talked about the mattress. And one thing that's really interesting, between the time that I made this slide and the time that I went live, I referenced this on Facebook, but I was just curious tonight, have I seen all of the text messages? Because the search feature in messages, and you'll see where I'm going with this in a minute, the search feature in the messages app, if you're an iPhone user, it leaves a lot to be desired. And that's largely what I relied on using my laptop, because then it's easier to get screenshots and stuff. So tonight I was just curious. And so I actually flipped. I just kept flipping, until I got back to April 2018. And there was actually something that Lori said, and I'll get to that a little bit later, that where she she actually gave a time frame. So she made this claim that that I thought at the time she had said that one of the police officers, so I've talked about this before, I talked about this on Dateline. Her claim was that 2 police officers let her and Tylee into the apartment to get any effects that Tylee wanted. And she said that initially they didn't want to let her in, her meaning Lori. And Lori said, hey, Tylee's a minor. I'm her mom. I'm not sending her in there without me. And she brought out a box of photo albums, which I will get to. And also, she had told me that there were piles and piles of files along the wall of Joe's bedroom. And she made fun of him, like, what a freak, that was he, still going through all these old files years later. But she also said, I thought at the time that she had said that the police officers described the state of the mattress. But I actually found out when I went through the text, and I'm not trying to pull a BuzzFeed, it seemed more intuitive to put it in this other spot in the presentation. But I actually found out that she gave me the week that she had gone in, and her claim was that the mattress, the bloody mattress, was still in the apartment when they went in there. But it gets even more outrageous than that. So, but when I was just researching some of these things, like my search history would be alarming if someone went in there. But I was looking to see what could cause that, and the answer, this was months ago. And then today, once again, with going back through, or this weekend, going back through the different documents, I caught something that I had never noticed before. There is evidence of moderate decomposition. Now, the police actually said, they didn't say extreme, advanced decomposition. And that actually seems to be more in line with, from non-professional opinion. It seems to be more in line with moderate decomposition, but maybe they're working with different protocols. I don't know. As indicated by bloating of the body with extensive skin slippage and green discoloration. So this gets a little gross, but with the skin slippage, what can happen is if you move the body or there's any stress to the skin, it basically gives way. And without any more detail, I am under the impression that that's probably what happened with Joe, given it's a pretty extreme difference in the mattress. I'm not exaggerating. But so that also begs the question, how, and I'm not in any way trying to undermine the ME. I'm not saying he's not capable. I know that, this comes down to, budgets, and they have to decide where they're going to, focus their efforts. So I'm not in any way, trying to malign him. But I do question how effective an external examination would be. Just from what I can deduce, was probably the state of Joe's body. And there is more detail in the autopsy if you're so inclined. Okay, so that's the first question. I just really question how reliable an external examination would be, especially given the fact that it's not like he was found within hours. And we know from the person who reported it, he said that he had last seen Joe approximately 10 days prior. And given the state of decomposition, it looks like he was dead for most likely a week to 2 weeks. Okay, so this is a big question, and you'll see where I'm going with this. I have really big questions on when Joe last saw Tylee. So when I was there in 2018, I was really careful not to ask Tylee questions about her dad. I didn't know where she was, and I didn't want to come in as, her aunt. It just, kind of like, hey, I'm your long lost aunt. Let me ask you all these personal questions. So the only question that I asked her that I remember regarding Joe was when she had last seen Joe. And one thing I will say, and I always thought that her reaction, because she seemed a little deer in the headlights, and you've seen a little bit of Tylee's personality if you've seen the body cam footage from when they were in Gilbert Police Department. She's pretty, like she was very strong. She takes things in stride, so she's not like a particularly nervous person. I mean, she was a badass, but so she just looked vulnerable and like a little deer in the headlights. And I noticed Lori was standing behind me and a little bit to my left. And so I saw her look up at Lori, and I felt really bad because I thought, oh man, like maybe I shouldn't have asked any questions about her dad. But she did answer. She told me that it had been a little over a year. And so I just kind of filed that away. And I mean, it was sad. It was sad to think that Joe hadn't seen her in more than a year. But then I noticed when this was early on when I came into possession of this incident report, that it said that Lori told, so the police called her on April 13th, and Lori had told them that she had not heard from Joseph in about 2 years. So immediately, right there, especially knowing the serious issues that Lori has with honesty, this was a red flag. And this has been a really frustrating red flag, because where there's smoke, there's fire. Why is there such a dramatic difference between what Tylee told me and what Lori told me? But then I've been in contact off and on with one of the moms, more than one mom, but one mom in particular who was, her daughter was friends with Tylee. And I asked her if she knew. And she had told me that shortly after Tylee moved to Hawaii, and that was a heartbreaking event for Joe, I know. But shortly after she moved, she had come back to Phoenix to visit with him, and she went to girls' camp, and that was June of 2014. And they had moved sometime in early 2014, maybe April, May, something like that. So there was only a little bit of time, if I'm understanding the timeline correctly. And Tylee had come back for this girls' camp, and she stayed with her dad, and it didn't go particularly well. Tylee also got sick, but the friend's mom told me that when Tylee had at some point after Tylee got back to Hawaii, she called her dad and had the talk with him and let him know that she didn't want to see him anymore. So that was sometime in 2014. We don't know exactly when that was, but it was sometime after that visit, which was in June 2014. So now that presents a third date. So from this mom's point of view, and she wasn't as involved, like the last year of Tylee's life, so there is room for, like maybe Tylee agreed to see him and her friend didn't know about it. I try to consider all of the options, but we have 3 different times that we have June 2014, and there is something in one of the photos. In fact, the photo from the office that kind of is a hat tip to that. I'll get to that. So we have this June 2014 date. We have somewhere around like early 2015 2017, because Tylee had said it had been a little more than a year. And then we have 2016, according to Lori. So and that's enough to make it onto my radar. One thing that I also noticed, so Keith Taniguchi had mentioned when he was interviewed by Justin Lum, he had been Joe's attorney, his criminal attorney. And he had said that Joe, I think he might have said that Joe had 3 DUIs in a year. I might be remembering that incorrectly. It had been over a period of years. I think his first one might have been 2001, something like that. Not that I am in any way discounting DUIs. The second one was actually an extreme DUI. It was his blood alcohol was 0.20. And so there's serious issues there. But in October 2014, he had gotten his 3rd DUI. And we know from Keith that he had gone to Gilbert and stayed with him for a little bit. I think stayed with someone else. Then he thought down Westville. Thursday, October 8th of 2015, he made this comment that said, "What up? I'm moving back to Austin next week." Now, I think he thought he was replying to someone who had commented on one of his pictures, but it was like one of those things where like he didn't actually, it wasn't embedded under someone else's comment. So it ended up being, you know, a little random. But that, I was like, oh, that's interesting, because that fits, that helps tell a story. You know, Joe had gotten this call in 2014 that Tylee didn't want to see him anymore. You know, sometime later, he gets the DUI. He has to stick around for the, you know, for the disposition date, whatever was involved with that. And then you can see he's just like, that's it. I'm a bounce. You know, he loved Austin. That was his absolute favorite city to live. So I wasn't surprised that he would move back to Austin. The sad thing to me was that, yeah, Tylee, I think at that point he was like, they may never come back. And even if they do, my daughter has said she doesn't want to see me. And so this, to me, this just seems like, you know, it's a sad point, but it's a point on the timeline. So at some point in 2015, he moved to Austin, but I think because he was just kind of in flux, we don't have like solid dates for any of that. If anyone is listening to this and you have any kind of dates, I would greatly appreciate any information. Part of what helps me do what I do is just the people who reach out to me, you know, and share things and say, please don't share this with, you know, publicly or anything like that. But I get a lot of pieces, even if I can't share a lot of these details, it does help me understand the story. Okay, so having given that as a backdrop, this causes some confusion for me when I look at his office. Now, keep in mind, he had bounced around a lot. We know he moved to Austin. We know he was couch surfing. He stayed at Keith Taniguchi's. He, I think, stayed with, I think he said like a brother or a friend of his or something. And then he went to New Jersey. So he would have been pretty light, like, you know, like you don't need Marie Kondo telling you to minimize, you know, the junk in your trunk if you're, you know, kind of in the wind like Joe was. And if, you know, what Keith said is accurate, you know, about him being unemployable, you know, that would certainly factor into that, you know. So it wouldn't make sense to me that he would keep a lot of stuff. And we do see evidence of that in his apartment. But now we're going to jump into the room that I have really big questions about. So first off, and I broke this up into groups just so that I can kind of, well, it's because I'm an analyst. But first off, there are some indicators in here that when I started going inch by inch, there were some indicators that, wait a minute, was he preparing for a trip? First off, I noticed that there were these dress shirts over here. I mean, first off, and I will get more into this, the fact that his apartment is as much of a wreck as it is, and that has caused me so many questions, because when I knew Joe, and I actually lived with Joe for a month when I aged out of foster care, he had convinced me to move to Albuquerque and go to school there, and that didn't go well. But we lived together for that month, and Joe was absolutely fastidious. He was like, look up perfectionist in the dictionary, and it says, see Joseph Anthony Ryan. I mean, he really was that much of a perfectionist, and it made it really difficult to live with him. And I wasn't a slob by any measure, but it made it difficult to like learn his systems and stuff. So this room caught my attention for that, and even applying the depression discount, and it's clear that he's depressed. He is cash strapped. You see, notices and creditors, letters from creditors all over the apartment. I will actually address some of that, but so it's for the Joe that I knew, it is unusual to see like shirts just thrown off to the side, especially that top one. You can see that looks like a pretty nice shirt. It has a nice sheen. He had impeccable taste. So not a big deal, but just notable. Then of course there's the suitcase. I don't know how I didn't notice that when I first started looking at all these pictures. I think some of it was just that I think there's a total of 131 pictures, so there's a lot. So, there's this suitcase and it's out in the room, but then this one really got me. I travel a lot, and immediately this jumped out at me. When I was zoomed in, I was like, that looks like a travel pillow, and that does not look like a travel pillow a dude would use. And when you kind of zoom in on it, it appears to me, even like with the stitching and stuff, that appears to be like similar to this travel pillow. And you see them in polka dots all the time. I'm not sure why. Maybe it helps hide dirt. Next up, there's this. You see this edge of a duffel bag, but again, when you look at it zoomed in, there are hearts. There are pink, lime green, shout out to all my lime green lovers, and like baby blue hearts on this duffel bag. And so, clearly this isn't Joe's duffel bag. And so again, I was just like, when I got to this part, I was really mystified. And then there is this bag over here, and another shout out to Janice. She actually tracked down what bag it was, because she saw that it was there was a little bit of the Nike swoosh. I mean, that girl has an eagle eye, and she just searched like older bags like this, and found, I think she found it on eBay, because you can't find this particular bag anywhere. And she actually had like arrows from the strap, like strap to strap and stuff. It was pretty extraordinary. But yeah, I think that this is that bag. And now I don't think that this bag would have been Joe's, only because he had his own bag. And there's actually a picture of him on Facebook with that bag. So maybe not. I think the other bag is a little more yellow. So not quite as masculine. That's not like a statement about masculinity, more his taste. And so this just left me with a lot of questions. But then there were other items in this group, like this particular group of items, that appear to be kind of like either memoirs or gifts. And so the first one is this. I can't really tell what this is. And I did try to do a reverse image search. I couldn't find it. At first I thought it was a gift, but it looks worn, like maybe a journal or something like that. So I don't know if like maybe he kept a journal for her, or maybe she had journaled. I know like with my kids, I had kept a journal that I started when I was pregnant with them, and just noted different things And for my one child who we adopted from foster care, when we got him. So maybe it's something like that. But again, it looks particularly feminine to me, and like a younger girl. And then next up, you see that I noticed that there was like these, it looks like a flyer for like school portraits, because I've seen a lot of these over the years. And once again, Janice zoomed in and turned it sideways and saw that it said Spring Photography 2014. So remember that June 2014 date where the Tylee's friend's mom said that was the last time Tylee saw her dad. So it just makes me wonder, especially given how cruel Lori is and was to Joe, it was that possibly the last time he had like school photos of Tylee. And we know by the end she was homeschooled. I use that word very, very loosely. When I was there, I mean, Tylee was sleeping till like noon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I think she basically got her GED, and she was a really, really smart girl. And next up, this one mystified me the most. To me, this looks like a jewelry box. Others have said it looks like blocks. I'm like, maybe that like you could put up on the wall. I think it's too young of a design. Like Tylee at that point would have been 15. And so, but then also you see over here that looks like a new barcode. I mean, if this picture just had a little more resolution, I almost feel like I could like scan it and then find out what it is. But yeah, it's not quite enough resolution. But okay. And I just want to note that these are different from the keepsakes he had of Tylee. So the only decorations you see in his entire apartment, are these pictures of Tylee. And that's sad to see. It's sad for me because Joe was an extraordinary decorator. Like I put decorations on walls so that I don't look like Data from Star Trek. I don't notice them. They don't really do anything for me. I just want to look kind of normal, so I put things up on the walls. But Joe was an absolutely fabulous decorator and really got into it. And so I was very surprised when I saw the apartment initially. I thought he must have like just moved in, but I'll make the case. This was with Garna's help. I think today that no, he had been in this apartment for a while. So you see the photos over there, and then you see these items here. And clearly these were things that he kept from when Tylee was younger. Okay, so more indicators that he might have been getting ready to travel. This was the toothbrush in his bathroom. And I noticed that amongst all of the travel, kind of accoutrements actually, that were in the office, there was this Sonicare toothbrush. And so, obviously it wouldn't really make sense to keep your Sonicare toothbrush in your office instead of your bathroom. So I just wondered if he was going on a trip possibly, or he thought he was going on a trip with Tylee and didn't want to be embarrassed by the state of his toothbrush, because otherwise, why not just have it in the bathroom? He also, you can see here, there's a brand new hair dye bottle that looks like it was used, and you can see a glove, and also the clippers are out. So one of my daughters is a vintage hair and makeup stylist, and so I was like, okay, what are these used for? Like, what, if I'm a dude, like why would I use these? And she said, oh, he most likely used them to trim up his beard. He had a goatee and a mustache, and so another thing about the glove, it might be something, it might be absolutely nothing. But I did take note that there's only one of them, so that's a little weird. But then also, it's not facing in like the most intuitive direction. Like you take off gloves, it would kind of, like if you put hair dye in, you're going to have to jump in the shower and use those gloves again, and then you typically discard the gloves. And so it kind of makes sense that you would like take them off and face them in the opposite direction, because you're going to use them again to rinse out your hair or whatever. So again, it's definitely not like a smoking gun, but an indicator that it does appear that he was preening. He was getting ready for something. Then I also noticed on the desk in his office, there was a camera, and on the floor in the office, amidst all of like the kind of girl stuff, I noticed what looks to be a used film canister, whatever that's called. It's been so long since I've used one. But so it just made me wonder, was he getting the camera ready for something, and he discovered, oh my God, because no one uses film anymore. So was he getting the camera ready, and then noticed that there was used up film in there? I just don't know. It's a curiosity. These aren't typically things that you see sitting out just for like everyday kind of thing. A big question I have, and I have gone through these photos with a fine-tooth comb. That does not mean that I am not capable of missing something, because I certainly am. But nowhere in any of these photos have I seen Joe's phone. And that, to me, that's very concerning, because the incident report said that they did not collect any of his items, that they left the apartment as it was, and they were waiting for the results of the autopsy. So they didn't take anything, according to the incident report. So you would expect to see the phone here, and it's not. And again, feel free to join the group, start poking through the photos. I would love for someone to find evidence of a phone. We've found everything from what appears to be a version 2 Nintendo DS, a portable charger. We've certainly found different electronic items, but not a phone. There's an iPad by the front door, but I can't find a phone. And so the reason I'm advocating so hard is that depending on his carrier, there is an expiration date. These phone companies, like, I want Phoenix Police to, at minimum, just get I just wonder, did someone arrange something with Joe? Because Joe's apartment was a bit of a fortress, so they wouldn't have been able to just break in the front door. If you've watched the Dateline episode, he had a secondary lock. I also have pictures of it. So his apartment was pretty locked down, and that secondary lock you couldn't even access it from the outside, only the inside. As I said on Dateline, that's an indicator to me of a man who was living in fear. So like, in my mind, something would have had to possibly lure him to open himself up to Lori, or whoever. And again, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. There is the possibility that Joe died of natural causes, and all of these things are just weird happenstance. There is that possibility. I am not saying that that Phoenix Police need to investigate his death because I am convinced that he was murdered. I'm saying that I do not believe that Phoenix Police has done their due diligence in this case. If I, with such limited information, can poke through these photos and find issues in them, I just think, like, at bare minimum, order his electronics so that if something comes up later on, we don't find out like, oh, you know what, he was with Metro PCS and they've already, destroyed his records. So I'm really, really hoping he was with AT&T or T-Mobile. They, according to U.S. News and World Report, they hold on to their records the longest. Okay, another question I have: why was Lori deceptive in her notes from PPD? So let's jump into that. So when I was there in May 2018, she showed me this piece of paper where she had taken notes when someone from Phoenix Police called her. And it was Detective Smith. He originally was the detective over Joe's case. Another guy, Johnny something, it'll come to me, inherited Joe's file. So, there are these notes, and I had thrown this out in True Crime Underground, and I wish I remembered who it was, but someone pointed out that it looked like the 8 had been written over. And sure enough, when we really took a look at this, and there just happened to be a lot of 8s on this piece of paper, which is pretty incriminating. Lori's 8s did not. This is how I do my 8s. I start in the middle. I circle around, but that's not how she does her 8s. She does them like this. So I did wonder about that, and so I went back to the incident report, and sure enough, they had called her on April 13th. So again, it's just like, if you have nothing to be ashamed of, if you have nothing to be nervous about, why lie? Why go back over a 3 and make it an 8? Like, you gained 5 days. I mean, it was still super horrible that you didn't call me. So what's the difference of 5 days? Is that number significant to her? I don't know. But yeah, there was also something else. I think I have it covered up. Oh yeah, I might reference. Oh, do I reference it later? Yeah, I do. Okay, so I'll just keep going. Yeah, this. I just thought that this was weird. Like, would a police officer tell, a former spouse, "Hey, don't worry. I mean, like I now have an idea of the condition of his body," and I could see maybe saying something cloying like this if you were talking to the person's spouse and she was distraught, or just whatever to make her feel better. But I'm sure they were not picking up on distraught when this detective called Lori. So, again, not a big deal, but it just seemed a little weird. Even at the time, I was like, because I hate that stuff. I'm like, oh, he died peacefully. Well, we don't know. Anyway, okay. Was Joe's apartment ransacked? So Tom Ware, he was interviewed by Dateline, and he was one of the guardians ad litem, I think that's the plural, for Tylee. The other one was Mary Bogle. I actually spoke to both of them back in 2007, maybe, because I was brought in as part of the investigation. And so, he says here, early in 2007, as Joe's child custody case progressed, Joe believed that someone broke into his apartment through an open window. There were no obvious signs of a forced entry, however. Joe had left his apartment that day to attend a hearing for his custody case with Tylee, and was in court during the time of the alleged break-in. Joe remarked that his papers on his desk were rearranged and that his computers were likely accessed due to both of his computers having blue screens and requiring a reboot. He was so concerned that his work computer had been tampered with that he subsequently reported the incident to his work IT department. I actually saw this in one of the court documents. Joe likely did not report the incident to the police department, although Joe was, and I don't know what the rest of it said. This was just a screenshot that someone had passed on to me. I didn't have the time to dig through those 1,700 pages to try to find the reference that I had read, this same story. It just went into a little bit more detail about the steps that he took work-wise. So first off, you see this pattern in the apartment. Again, might be nothing, might be something. Having already made the case that this is very much outside of Joe's normal MO, but you see that there's this drawer here that's left open. And another weird thing, and I'll get back to the open drawer, is that you see clothes that are on the floor. And again, I might be looking too much into it. Just ignore his underwear over there. But you see these clothes that are on the floor here, but they appear to be clean and folded. So that seems a little weird. And then there are these what appear to be dirty socks on top of clean pants. And so I just, again, there might be a perfectly normal explanation. I know that like when I prepare for some of these interviews, I tear through my closet trying to figure out what to wear, but I don't fold them up and put them in neat piles on the floor. They typically they fly into a pile on the bed. But then what was very weird was you see the same open drawers in the bathroom. Now, when they come in and they photograph the apartment, they're photographing it as is. There is one open drawer in the kitchen that was most likely, the police probably opened up that one because his medicine bottles were right outside of it. But here, these drawers are empty. So why would Joe have opened up empty drawers? He would know that they're empty. So it just seems odd and notable. The other thing that I noticed all throughout the apartment is that there are these creditor letters, but like everywhere, so like if you're in financially like a really tough spot, and you're naturally like your personality craves order really kind of to an extreme. And we do see evidences of his natural proclivities toward order in these photos, and I'll get to those. But would you want reminders that like you are not this super successful person you used to be? Like in one of my lives, I shared photos of like the house that he and Lori built, custom built. I mean, it was palatial. It was absolutely gorgeous. For most of the time, I knew Joe as adults. He was very successful and he was very driven. So this had to be just absolutely crushing. And I noticed with this one, it's a little blurry, but it says $153. It looks like maybe 36 cents or something like that. But they're offering him a settlement for a bill that's $153. That is not in keeping with, the Joe who was, the Joe he was when he met Lori before she sucked all the life out of him. Another thing that I don't go into too much in this live, but it is mystifying that, this is April. He would have died in, late March. But it's not very cold in Phoenix in late March. I actually pulled up the weather, the historical weather. And so I did think it was kind of weird that there's one glove, a black glove sitting on the counter, and either the tips are tucked inside, like he took it off really fast, or maybe like it's a golf glove or a biking glove. I'm not really sure. So I'm just noting it, but I don't know that it's significant at all. But I will really drill down on just the level of chaos and my question of is this potentially contrived? Knowing Lori's personality, she is, and I actually don't mean this to be cruel or to be insulting, not that I think she deserves any kind of respect, but I do try to keep things kind of as objective as possible. But she's just not a very intelligent person. She is very conniving, and she's been able to rely on her beauty and her personality. But we have seen a pattern of her like kind of taking things to a clownish level, almost like a child would do. And I saw that even with one of the allegations that she made about Joe with Tylee, and it really struck me, and that was when I was there in 2018. It really struck me that she doesn't even know that, like, this claim she's making, it's not possible. It might be possible, but it's not conceivable. It's not. It's so absolutely gross. I can't repeat it. Like, I told one person, and it pained me, and that was just last week. I was like, here's what she said, because it was just absolutely beyond disgusting, and Tylee was standing right there. But anyway, so I just wonder with some of these things, if it isn't like if someone wasn't in the apartment after Joe had already passed and was just trying to make him look worse than he was, or just make it like, kind of like paint her own story, because like that counter that we saw, that is right when you walk in to the apartment. That's right in the kitchen. This is on the sofa in his living room. So let's take a look at this stuff. Here we have another creditor. That's what this is over here. But then again, to me, this just seems kind of clownish. Like, then there's a lottery ticket, multiple lottery tickets. It looks like four lottery tickets. So it's like, okay, I have this bill. I'm stressed out. I also have this other bill on the kitchen counter, and that doesn't even account for the bills that were strewn all over his office. So I'm going to go and I'm going to play the lottery, because I'm going to try to be able to, like, get on top of all of this. Oh, but all of this is really stressing me out. And so I'm actually going to back this up a little bit. This is a blood pressure monitor. So here he is, monitoring, like measuring his blood pressure with a bill and lottery tickets. And then this here, ACOS. So this is a medical insurance alternative, I guess, for maybe like for people who don't have insurance. I went to their website to try to learn more, but take note of this logo, because we'll see it again. And this is their website here. Obviously you can see the logo. I just pulled it up just to kind of try to figure out. I kind of concluded that he wasn't employed and he didn't have health insurance, but you see all the stuff that someone would use to stretch out their back. He did have back problems, and he did regularly stretch out his back. So those things are believable. He would have had them all like lined up in a row in like descending order of like size, or ascending order. He wouldn't have just had them, strewn about. But he also wasn't expecting company. And then here's like just kind of breakdown. And so this is fitting for someone. Now, for me, I'm not from Phoenix. I've never heard of this program. But if you're a police officer, you most likely would recognize this program and recognize this is for someone who doesn't have access to health insurance. This is another pamphlet from that same company, but this is this I just like flipped around. You can see that logo. And it's same company, but this is in the office, and then there are more in like another area in the living room. So the story that this kind of paints is like, he's just making sure that wherever he walks in his apartment, he's going to be reminded by something that will really stress him out. And I'm not even hitting all of the points. I mean, the coffee table next to the sofa has bills all along the bar, separating the kitchen and the living room, more bills all along his, the desk in his office, on the floor under the desk. Again, depression could do a lot to people, but does it really change a person that much? Maybe. I don't know. These are just questions I have. Another thing that stood out to me is the placement of his wallet. So typically I would think that it's been a minute since I've been married, but you wouldn't think of like a guy coming in and being like, oh, this tiny little wallet is killing me here. I'm just going to take it out and, put it on the kitchen counter and leave it there. Like typically you would think of it being like on the nightstand or something like that. Who knows? He could have pulled it out to make a payment. We just don't know. But here you see another bill. This is from a company that insures high risk drivers. This would have been because of his history of DUI. So yeah, again, maybe he really just allowed himself to be this surrounded by all of these reminders that, he wasn't the shining star he once was. But, alternatively, this could have been someone, just digging out papers from wherever and just tossing them about to paint this picture. And this is just the placement of that other ACOS brochures. Okay. Next up, I need to tell a little bit of a story so that you can understand why I was so confused by this picture in particular. This is one. I think anyone who has followed me this long, I am very, very careful, and there's no incentive for me to lie about anything, like in terms of like, oh, let me tell you this story about Joe from the month I was living with him, just to, because I want the truth, regardless of how ugly it is. I want the truth. So the reason that this really stuck with me from the first time I saw these, I mean, to be totally honest, the first time I saw this, I was like, bullshit. There's no way. There is no way. And this is why. When I lived with him, I don't even think I made it a month. But as I said, we didn't grow up together. I was basically raised by wolves, and so I was drinking, like a glass of whatever, and I put it down on the table in his living room. And Joe, as he had a tendency to do, he did have a trigger point temper, and he could just go from like 0 to 60. When he was like at the end of the night, every night he would just smoke a little bit of pot, and that was before it was like legal or okay to do that, but he would just smoke a little bit. Like he wouldn't get stoned, but he would just get a little bit of a buzz, and that was the time that he was so enjoyable to hang out with, because he had this incredible wit, and he was a really caring person, and he was kind of like that third base coach kind of brother, always wanting to help out and stuff. But when he wasn't buzzing, that's when there were problems. And also keep in mind, from the time that I was 8 to the time that I aged out of foster care at 17, I had only seen Joe 2 times. So one was when he pulled together this Thanksgiving dinner, which I mentioned on Dateline. And one time my dad and I drove down to Florida when he was in the Navy to see him. And to my memory, those were the only 2 times. And I believe my memory is accurate on that. So we even though we were brother and sister, when I moved out there, I really did not know him. And so anyway, but So I put this glass down on the table, and he was still in his 20s. It's not like he had really nice furniture. In fact, I think he rented an apartment that came with furniture, if memory serves me. But he just kind of lost his mind. Like in his mind, like that is a no-brainer. Like, of course, everyone goes into adulthood, and well, technically I wasn't even an adult yet, but you go out into the world, to put your glass on a coaster. I didn't. I don't remember ever once putting a glass on a coaster. I grew up in absolute squalor. And so he just kind of lost his mind about that. And so, after that, of course, I always put a glass on a coaster. But when I saw this picture, I was just like, there is no way. So it kind of looks to me from this picture that when I first saw it, and this was, I think, before they did the follow-up where they actually took the pieces of organ and retested it. But these look like wine glasses to me, in particular, white wine glasses, the red wine. These are stemless wine glasses. So here's a picture of a stemless wine glass. These don't look like water glasses to me. They could be, but the red wine glasses are a little stouter and not as narrow at the top. Not that it matters if it's red or white, but when I saw it, I was like, okay, so what? He's double fisting wine glasses? Like he had, not that he wouldn't be able to handle 2 glasses of wine, but it almost looks in this scene like he was drunk, like I actually put the glass down, and it looks like he just pushed the coasters out of the way, like, oh, what are these doing here? I want to make sure my glass has contact with my furniture. Not that this is the nicest furniture, but it wasn't back then either. So this is a bit of a stretch for me to think, it is possible. I didn't have contact with Joe for years, so it is absolutely possible, but it is, in my mind, I just can't imagine him going from, freak the F out to, what are these coasters doing here? So I actually did a sweep of the apartment, and I noticed that there was another one. This looks like it had neither cranberry juice or red wine in it. There was an empty bottle of cranberry juice on the kitchen counter. And there are these limes. Sorry, the sink is gross. But there are these limes sitting in the sink. So again, that was one more thing that, when I first saw the pictures, I was like, oh, Joe, like, did he fall off the wagon? And that is entirely possible. But there is also, if you look at the pictures, there are AA or like books about sobriety. There's one right next to all the travel stuff for Tylee. There's another one in his bedroom. So who knows? Thankfully, I've never struggled with alcoholism. So, who knows? It might be like a man walking upstairs with a yo-yo. You might be up and down, but overall making progress. I don't know. These are just notable. However, all these indicators would seem to indicate someone who has a very serious, potentially like struggle with alcohol, because there's just alcohol everywhere. It just seems like he can't go from one room to the next without, a glass of something. But when they did retested his organs, there was no alcohol in his blood. So, I was just kind of like, okay, you have 2 wine glasses, and then another wine glass in the living room, and limes in the kitchen sink. Everything seems to indicate that he had alcohol that night, but he didn't. So again, it's just another question. And so I did a sweep of the apartment to see if like his characteristic, like, because he just had coasters everywhere when I lived with him. And when I looked at his desk, sure enough, here are 2 coasters. So he's ready for action here. There are no glasses over there, but there are the coasters. And then this, to me, this was a smoking gun. When I saw this, and I just saw this a couple days ago, I was like, There it is. That's the Joe I know. This guy was so neurotic about any kind of moisture from, and we didn't have water bottles back then. This was the 80s. You drank water from the tap. But like at that time, like glasses, and I did hang out with him when there were water bottles. But, even when we hung out, like he was just always, like he was much nicer when my kids were there. And when I was visiting him, he was like, oh, here's a coaster, so we all grow and mature. But this I just found to be absolutely hilarious because I was like, yes, this is in keeping with the 1980, 85 Joe I encountered, as well as what I encountered when I would visit him. But I mean, this is I don't remember him actually using coasters on a kitchen counter. I mean, it's not even like this was his first home and, like he's just trying to take really good care of it. This was an apartment, like a kind of okay, pretty bare bones apartment. But he's like, nope, it belongs on a coaster. And there we go. Another coaster on a surface that doesn't need a coaster. So, seeing this again, I just, when I looked at the pictures in his bedroom, I was just like, yeah, this doesn't gel. Like, how do you, in one room, you're like, I want to protect the kitchen counter, and the kitchen counter was a mess, and then in your bedroom, on one of the few pieces of furniture you have in your apartment, you're like, whatever, move this coaster out of the way. So another thing that I noticed, this was bothersome. So obviously this is his router, and this was what made me absolutely convinced he must have just moved into the apartment, because this is jerry-rigged. You see that it is plugged into an extension cord, and this kitchen counter, and the kitchen counter was a mess, and then in your bedroom, on one of the few pieces of furniture you have in your apartment, you're like, whatever, move this coaster out of the way. So another thing that I noticed, this was bothersome. So obviously this is having your apartment, you're like, whatever, move this coaster.
Is this the I think you were talking about that you thought maybe was a coaster? It looks like a little notebook. Let me see if I can zoom in. It looks like there's some wear on the corner. Doesn't look like a notebook. I don't see any paper. Almost. Is it a calculator? I do have a calculator that's in something like that. Doesn't look like a phone though, because both sides have the same thickness, but they don't look thick enough to have a phone in it. You have to remember this was back in, was it 2015? Oh, I don't know. I guess they have phones back then that were smaller. I don't know. It doesn't look like a phone, but it could be. Could be.
Out of the way. So another thing that I noticed, this was bothersome. So obviously this is his router, and this was what made me absolutely convinced he must have just moved into the apartment, because this is jerry-rigged. You see that it is plugged into an extension cord which goes up the side of the guest bathroom. So this router is plugged into the bathroom, sitting on the floor where he would have to step over it anytime he used the bathroom. that particular bathroom. And, I checked in the office, there were outlets, so who knows, maybe the electricity went out. He didn't want the super to see that he had modified the door. There are other explanations, but this also, another explanation could be that someone wanted to make him look like a colossal loser who had just kind of given up on life, was just chaotic. And and the people coming into this apartment, which from my research would have smelled horrifically. I watched a YouTube video about it. And it smelled. The bedroom was a disaster. The bed was a disaster. They clearly didn't have an easy time moving his body. And so all of these things, they could potentially weigh into whether or not this person has any kind of indication that that there was foul play. Okay. Oh, I already shared that. So I thought for sure he must have just moved in. But once again, Garner coming in, she had mentioned months ago about the incident report mentioned that the address on his driver's license was this Baseline Road, and that's where he lived. But again, I didn't have the full incident report, so when she sent it to me today, or I didn't think I had it, sure enough, the address on the driver's license was this Baseline Road. Now, again, this is the analyst in me. There is the possibility that he just updated his address on his driver's license, but the issue date is September 5th, 2017, and this was April 2018, so he would have been there at least 7 months. Again, unless, and I did look into Arizona's policy in terms of updating an address. Arizona doesn't play. Like, they want you to update your address on your driver's license within 10 days. I don't know a single person who would do that, except maybe Joe. But I don't know if they restart the issue date. I just wasn't able to chase that down, and I had other stuff to do, like work. And so when I talk about Joe being fastidious, so I'm working on this project where I'm taking all of my photos and digitizing them. And so I came across different pictures that had just been in boxes and stuff. And I came across this one. There's actually kind of a funny story behind this one. So when our dad died, that's not the funny part, in 1990, there was this big fight over who was going to get the photo albums, especially between Joe and another brother, Tom, who passed away a few months after Joe. And Tom thought we should all divvy them up, and Tom was absolutely right, but Joe was the strongest personality in the family, and so he insisted on taking the photo albums, and he was going to, divide them up and send them out to us. So I did eventually get an envelope with a few pictures. Now, there weren't any pictures of me in this, and you can't see it, and it looks like I just got a brand new computer today, and my camera worked fine when I tested it with a test video. It didn't work when I started, so I would hold it up because it is hilarious. He sent me this photo, but he blew it up to 8x10 because I think he was like, "Damn, I look good. Yeah, this is gonna be 8x10," and send it to me. But it is useful in just showing just how fastidious he was. Like my other brother, he's like baseball hat, just super chill, whatever. Clearly the milkman's kid. But Joe, everything had to be perfect. He always had the most recent fashion. This was 1990. His gig line was perfect. His buttons lined up with his fly and his belt. I mean, everything had to be perfect. So that was Joe. But you also see evidence of this this tendency to be like really neat and specific and organized, even in his closet. So in this apartment, his closet was divided up into 2 closets. I guess it was supposed to be like a his and her. And you see his clothes, like, you know, his pants are neatly lined up, his belts are neatly lined up, like everything is in its place. I do wonder if potentially someone just like pulled the jeans that we saw on the floor from this top shelf here and just left them on the floor. Even here, oops. I could be wrong about this, but it kind of, and you don't have like a really good shot of this closet, but it kind of looks like when he wears a shirt, he puts it on the top, and like the shirts that haven't been worn yet, like where you see like the really crisp lines, they're on the bottom, and that would be on brand for Joe. Okay. Why was Joe's window open? There's another question I have. So going back to the incident report, I never want to assume that people are familiar with all of the minutia in the story. It says police arrived on scene and contacted Roy. So Roy Zelinica, he was the one who called in the welfare check, who had seen Joe approximately 10 days prior. They then contacted the maintenance person for the complex, Rory James. Rory could not open the front door because the secondary lock was engaged from the inside. Rory then used a ladder to access the balcony and entered in through an open window after removing the screen, which was still in place. So the screen was in the window, but the window was open. And it must have been open pretty far for them to like flag it, because if you look at the door, and here by way of reminder, or if you haven't seen this, here's what the door looked like from the inside. You have this secondary lock up here. From the outside, here's a clever one, you cannot see that other lock. So, this is, to me, this is an indicator of a man living in fear. But I also took note of, clearly this would have been the easier window to enter. So the other window must have been, pretty obviously open, because you can actually get like locks that, like, if you just open it a little bit, you can attach a lock so that someone, from the inside, of course, so that someone can't open the window all the way. But the window and the back was open, so this Rory climbed in through this window. He took the screen out and climbed in through this window. So I have, and this is obviously Joe's bedroom. Sorry. And so I have questions about this, of course. So at the time of the welfare check, just minutes after this was when they arrived. So the temperature for that day was 84 degrees. That makes sense. But they took a picture of the thermostat in the apartment, and it was set at 74, and you see the indicator that the air conditioning was on. So putting yourself in the position of someone, and I'm cheap. I'm not even cash strapped. I'm cheap. Like, there's just no way I'm going to have like a window open and the AC set to 34. But so I do wonder about that. Like, okay, if I'm cash strapped and I need a settlement plan for a $153 bill, and I just use that by way of measurement, like by contrast, not in any way trying to like poverty shame Joe in any way. But if I need a settlement plan for $153, and I live in New York City, you live in small apartments, even small apartments, they're expensive. I never keep the AC at 74, but Joe always liked it really cold. But so that's not an insignificant amount of money. Would he, possibly, but like, would he have the window open also? And then I also noticed that because the incident report mentioned when I read the full one, it mentioned something about a fan. So I initially thought this was a heater, but it makes more sense that it's a fan, but it might be a multi-purpose. But it said something about a fan, and had already noticed that it was unplugged. So the window is right behind the TV. If it had been like a nice night, and it could have been, you know, when he actually passed away, I had looked at the temperatures, they were pretty decent, and they got hot in the morning. But, you know, if he had left the window open, why not turn the fan on? But then again, so the fan's not on and the AC is set to 74. And we also know that there was this prior incident where he suspected that someone entered through a window. So, you know, again, I just think it's enough that we should not be dismissing this case. Okay, the other question I have, I know, so many questions. Why is there no mold on the food? So in the kitchen, I've certainly had enough food go moldy on me. But in the kitchen, you see like two things of bread here. And someone mentioned today that like this kind of bread, I can't stand white bread, but this kind of French a French loaf, I think it is, it goes moldy pretty fast. So we know that it had been somewhere between a week to, you know, maybe 10 plus days. You know, when Rory said, or no, not Rory, Roy, when Roy said, you know, he thought he saw Joe 10 days before. Obviously, he didn't think that, you know, some crazy woman would one day be like mentioning this in a YouTube live. And, you know, so I'm not trying to hold him to 10 days, but, you know, there was just judging by the state of decomposition of his body and the state of the mattress, there was at least minimum a week. And there's no mold. Also, you see two different packages of tortillas. For what we see here, I don't see any evidence of mold. And then once again, you know, he leaves this tomato sauce, so spaghetti sauce, I'm assuming, out, and I don't see any evidence of mold in here either. So, you know, I'm just kind of like, was this whole scene staged, you know, just like I said earlier, just to make it look like a man who's just living in total chaos? Okay, why are there women's sunglasses in his bathroom? Okay, so here in the corner of, this isn't the guest bathroom, this is his bathroom. This was one of the first things I noticed. You see women's sunglasses. Now, Joe did not wear sunglasses like that. He was always like the, you know, kind of Ray-Ban kind of sunglasses, even his regular glasses. He just really liked that rectangular shape. And it's really distorted because of it's dark. But if you zoom in on the bar between the kitchen and the living room, you do see a pair of sunglasses that look like these on the bar. Okay, but as long as I've known Lori, she's always had a gravitational pull toward this particular style of sunglasses. And by style, I mean, like, you know, I've only seen her in like brown, like with a brown tint. Now, of course, so do, you know, tens, hundreds of thousands of other women. Obviously, this is not a DNA sample, but as I look at pictures of her with different sunglasses, actually, those might be black. I see, you know, quite a few, even though like this is a different style, you see that then that is definitely a brown lens and trim. Okay, now, of course, we all know potential other explanations for why there would be women's sunglasses, and they could have been there for days, from before his apartment was a wreck. I do feel confident that Joe would not have allowed someone into his apartment with it in the state that it was in. He was just too proud. He was too proud of you know, just his supreme organization skills. But, you know, they could have been there a while. Who knows? Why are there no pics of the garage? So we have a total of, I think it was 131 photos, and you see, and the incident report mentions the garage on the first floor, So the garage was underneath the apartment, but they didn't take any pictures. And who knows? I guess there's the remote possibility they could have withheld them in the Freedom of Information Act request. I can't imagine that there would be something that would like be damaging to his, I don't know, his privacy. It just, would have been a car. It looks to be a pretty small garage, but it is a question mark. Okay, so let's those I think are all of my questions. I do want to revisit 2007. So in the midst of pulling together all of the photos for this digitizing project, I came across a discovery that was really surprising. I'm not trying to add undue weight to them. I was thinking, so typically when I like put pictures in an album, it's like maybe a year or longer has passed, and I order up the pictures chronologically and I put them in the album, and you see like the album, the paper here, because I just took a picture immediately. I took a weird picture just because that is one of my daughters in a bikini, and that's Colby. So this was from our vacation with Lori and Charles, and there were just like kids everywhere. Charles' kids, Tylee was she was a preschooler for this vacation. Colby was young, and so Lori had invited us. We were already living in Florida, and so she had invited us to join them in Hollywood Beach, Florida for this vacation. And so I agreed to do it. We drove so we could leave anytime, but it was like all expenses paid. It was absolutely amazing. Both Lori and Charles, I've talked about this before, they were really generous. It was like a kid's dream vacation in a lot of respects. There were aspects to it that definitely were not dreamlike. I can't share them though, because they're not my story to share. But one thing that I had put these pictures in front of our 4th of July pictures from that year. One of my kids has a birthday on the 4th of July, and because I must have thought at the time that this vacation happened before the 4th of July. But as I was going through them, and we have a ton of pictures from this vacation, so I'm just like ripping everything out of the photo album, and just happened to notice that only one of the pictures had a timestamp. Mother of the Year here. Yep. We were swimming at 3:17 in the morning. And so what I suspect, thinking back to like kind of the earlier days of digital cameras, the digital cameras would default to adding a time, not usually a timestamp, but apparently this camera did, but at least a date stamp. But then that got annoying to always have date stamps on your pictures. So I would turn it off. Excuse me, need to get a drink here. So I would turn it off, but it appears to me, because only one of the pictures had this timestamp, I was like, I just stood there stunned. I was just like, that vacation wasn't in June. That vacation was in July. And I will share more about why why this was so stunning, especially because I literally discovered this the week following the Dateline episode. Excuse me. I wasn't that shocked. I just haven't been drinking enough. So I thought to myself, okay, all right, well, then this vacation was late July. And what I think happened was that I probably noticed, I took the first picture, I probably checked to make sure that it didn't have the date stamp, and then turned it off. Because like I said, you just have to take my word for it. There were pictures from the vacation on Dateline, but I went through, all of the pictures just to see, like, because I was trying to figure out, like, well, what was the end point? Because it would make sense that this would have been the first picture. So our vacation, most likely, we probably got there on like the 19th. Who knows, the time might have been off, maybe 19th, 20th, something like that. But I suspect we probably got in late on the 19th because I went after work, and excuse me. And then probably, I do remember it was a week-long vacation. So we would have finished up maybe like the 26th, 27th, something like that, I'm estimating. So, but I already had a timeline in my mind, but to refresh anyone's memory who's not familiar with it, and this was brought up in the Dateline episode, that it was noted on August 1st. So this was July 20th. We would have been gone by, maybe the 26th, 27th, as I mentioned. August 1st. So this is the following week. Lori is meeting with a therapist. Now, this is a therapist who is evaluating the risk levels of this family, and she is weighing in on whether Joe's visitation with Tylee should be reinstated. He went through a 12-month period where he couldn't see Tylee, and it's even noted in these court records that Tylee didn't know who her dad was. In one of the meetings, one of the sessions, someone asked Tylee if she knew who Joe Ryan was, and she said, he was my old daddy. Charles is my new daddy. So these 12 months, I mean, this is just like a detail in a YouTube live. I mean, for him, that had to have been, just absolutely devastating. But what this tells me is that we were on this vacation. So she, I believe, specifically planned this vacation with her ex-husband's sister. I totally believe, knowing full well what was going to happen just days later on August 5th. So just 4 days after she had said death would be an option. I should read that as well. Mrs. Vallow is a devout Mormon who has mentioned to me that death would be an option before giving Tylee to her father, Mr. Joseph Ryan, even for a visit. These are real and serious concerns. So she comes back from this amazing vacation, is so confident that she's like, actually tells a therapist death would be an option. And then 4 days later, Joe was assaulted by her brother, Alex Cox. I actually wonder, I will be very curious, during the trial, just to see, as all of these different events were happening, I will be very curious to see where Lori was, because Lori's MO is, she doesn't get her hands dirty. Everyone else gets their hands dirty, and she gets dirt on people, and that's kind of how she controls them. But in this case, I wonder if one was the original plan for Alex to actually murder Joe while we were on this vacation. Or alternatively, was the plan always to murder him after this visit? But then did she think, because she had just invited my kids and me to this amazing vacation, that I would somehow feel beholden to her and I wouldn't push for justice? In Lori's mind, everyone is a pawn. She will act like you are the most special person in the room. She wants to know all this information about your life, but she is gathering information for her own use. And I believe in her mind, this just would have been the absolute ultimate, for Joe, quite possibly to actually be murdered when we were on this vacation, but at minimum, right after it. Okay, where are the files and albums? I've been beating this drum for a long time. I've talked about how when I was there, Lori, we went into her garage. This was this huge 3-car garage, And to the far end of the garage, there wasn't a car there. And there were two boxes. One box had the photo albums, like our photo albums from childhood. There were, mostly from like before we went into foster care. So there were a lot more pictures of Joe than we were the bookends. He was the oldest, I was the youngest. But, there was this somewhat large box of photo albums. And then there was another box that just had all these files. And so Lori had told me that the police let her and Tylee in, and that she walked out with these albums and these files that she had said were lined up along the window of, or the wall, the wall in Joe's bedroom. And so when I got these pictures initially, I scoured them to see any evidence that there were photo albums or these files, because it was very apparent that they were in his apartment while he was deceased, because they reeked. I mean, I had never smelled dead body, but when you smell it, you recognize the smell. I mean, it was really pungent, very strong. So there is the chance that they could have been in the garage. That's why it's really disappointing that there weren't pictures of the garage. However, I question that, just given the strength of the odor. Maybe it could have seeped into the garage. I don't know, but there still wouldn't be an explanation for Lori specifically told me that Joe had all of these files lined up along the wall in his bedroom, and wondered if he went through the files like when he was in bed or something like that. And so I never want people to, as I mentioned earlier, I don't want people to just take my word for stuff. Like there have been a lot of outrageous claims throughout this case, and not just by Lori and Chad. I mean, like in the Facebook groups and stuff like that. So if I ever have the opportunity to actually show proof, I try to do that. It makes me feel better, and I just figured, well, there are some things that like either you believe me or you don't, like the coaster thing. But even the coaster thing, I mean, that was just tonight I saw that, the coaster with the water bottle. But so that requires like a little less having to believe me. But so what I did was I went back to my text exchanges while I was going through these albums. So Lori had asked me to go through these albums. You can see the date and time stamps. And I was, so what she wanted me to do was go through them and write notes for Tylee of who all these people were. So her explanation was that she wanted Tylee to be able to like connect with the Ryan family. Not, like I'm not really sentimental with stuff like that to begin with. And I was never really that tethered to the Ryan family. Like I love my family, but but then just from what I saw of Tylee and the fact that these albums stunk so badly. Like Lori brought them into the dining room, put the box on the dining room table. And now I look back and I'm like, was she getting off on, just watching me struggle just to be in the same room with this smell? But she, it was in, now that I look back, it was definitely within her personality to just not care, and like not take into consideration, you know what, I'm asking the sister of the man whose decomposed body added scent to this box, like maybe this is too much to ask, and so I kind of like gravitate toward the opposite extreme. Like if I ask someone to do something, I'm like, it's totally is MBD if you can't do it, blah 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 blah, but anyway. But Lori, her her shtick was, I really want Tylee to have this. And in fact, at one point she even told me like, oh, she just looks so much like you. I never saw it. I mean, she really looks like Lori's side of the family in my mind. But even at the time, I was just like, is she just like, you know, trying to like appeal to me, to like make me feel like, no, this is a really important mission. But in my mind, I was like, Tylee is never going to open up this box because this is nasty. Like, this is disgusting. If you want Tylee to have the pictures, then you pull them out of these albums and digitize them, or give them to me. I was willing to pull them out of the albums and digitize them, but she didn't want that. She wanted the notes in the album so that Tylee could go through the album. So it doesn't really matter so much, you know, like I'm not going to read all of this. These were text exchanges with one of my brothers who is alive, and he is very, very private. So that's why I blurred out the name. I did explain here. Now there was one detail that was very surprising, which I will get to. But I started here because there was a date and timestamp. And I said, yeah, she's known for a couple weeks. It was actually longer than a couple weeks. And also one thing to keep in mind here, because even when I read back over these texts, I'm like, man, because I had just found out that he had passed. Like, she had just called me back. But my tendency is I get so like caught up in my head. It is hours, if not at least like 24 hours before I really process something that's like really significant like this. So I read over these texts, and I mean, this is just who I am. This is how I process, but it seems like kind of casual. And also I noted that like I didn't pick up on something that I probably should have picked up on. But anyway, but I said, she called me back at 1:30. He's already been buried / cremated. She didn't know which one it was, according to the police. And the police just put down the date he was found as the date of his death. But he had been dead, they think, for at least a couple weeks. This is true. I forgot about this piece. I had changed my number because I was ditching AT&T, and they wouldn't let me take my number with me. But she, I can tell in this first text, I'm like, oh, well, I just believed her. She tried to call me, but I changed my number last year. Like, it wasn't, at some point later that day, I was just like, wait, we've had so many email exchanges, and my brother died. Like, sure, it is slightly inconvenient, but like if the person changes their number, like she still could have reached out to me over email. So to just go weeks, and it was more than a couple weeks, it was grossly inexcusable. Let me see. She and Tylee went to his apartment 2 weeks ago. I just found these texts right before the live, just because I had been relying on the search feature in the Messages app, which leaves a lot to be desired. So I was just curious about something. I was curious if I had all the family pictures that I had taken, because you'll see that I took pictures of different people, and I'm like, who this, who that, because I don't know who these people are. And I also just wanted to make sure I saw all the exchanges, and I had not, because I never saw this when I went back on my laptop. So it said she and Tylee went to his apartment 2 weeks ago. So this was on May 12th. So 2 weeks prior, that would have been the end of April. But we know that police called her on April 13th. Yeah. The police got a hold of her. The police told her that the state took care of the body. They had no other details. And then this was something that she had told me, and I just passed this on to my brother as if it was fact, not really thinking it through. But I said they hadn't even removed the mattress, which was soaked with blood. The apartment reeked of death, and I was probably using Siri, corrected that. Oh, yeah, Siri. And then I think it might have missed a couple calls. He said a couple texts because there's like this jump. But I said, and I talked with Tom, I give him Lori's number. If you want to pass it on, her last name is Vallow. I'm pretty sure they're because that's such a jump. It looks like there might be something missing. But this detail here, I had not remembered that. I remembered it as they had, like the police had told her that the mattress was soaked with blood. But what she had actually said was that when she and Tylee went in, so this would have been the end of April, they hadn't removed the mattress. Now, why would they go in and remove everything else? Well, no, I guess what she's saying here is they hadn't removed anything because she said that's when police let them in, and that's when she got the photo album. So this right here, if for no other reason, this is something that clearly Phoenix police can verify or not, and they can, they can get copies of the text messages if they have any question about the veracity of them. These were text messages between my brother and me. Okay, and then he asked how Tylee was doing emotionally. Send her my love and condolences, please. I said, Lori said she's kind of all over the map, but she rarely wants to talk about it. We didn't talk about it at all last night. Lori had told me that Tylee rarely wants to talk about her dad. So early on, I remember thinking, why am I here to be a support to Tylee? I was happy to reconnect with Tylee. That wasn't an issue. But I was brought out under the pretense of being a support to Tylee because Tylee was having a really hard time. And then this is the evidence that I have that I didn't make it long because there was one picture of all 5 of us kids, and we only have like maybe 1 or 2, and she wouldn't let me have the picture. And so between that and the smell, I was like, I'm done. I'm done. So I only made it like a few pages, but this is just me asking, like, who are these people, so I could write them down in this ridiculous, stinky photo album. But here I actually say, yeah, Lori wants me to go through them and document who different people are for Tylee, but I don't know who half these people are. And I make the point, Tom was more connected with extended family than us. I didn't blur his name because he passed. So, this is just more questions about that. And then I sent him the notes that Lori had copied down. And then these were my exchanges with my brother, Tom. And, again, just to verify, this was May 16th. He asked how I am. I said, I'm good. I'm in Arizona with Lori. He asked about Tylee. I say, I don't know. I just got in last night. So I actually have the dates that I was there in a calendar. But apparently it was the 15th. And I said, I don't, okay, I just got in last night and we kept it light. And I made the point to him, it's weird to be here and no one is sad. He's gone. It's sad he died alone, but no one misses him. And I've shared this before, but I actually sent him a message over Messenger. It was my first attempt to connect with him. That was March 27th. And let him know that our mother had passed. She had actually passed years before, but she was homeless and living, she had been homeless for years, so she was in the wind. And I would somewhat regularly, do a background check for her. And one of the times I pulled it up and it just said in giant red letters, deceased. So I had sent him a message letting him know. But according to the Emmy report, he was already dead, waiting to be found. So, if I had gotten it in maybe a week before or something, I mean, you can torture yourself with that woulda, coulda, shoulda. But I think that's about it. It's just like, just to provide the proof. Yes, there were photo albums. I was looking at pictures of people who I had no idea who they were. Okay, now I am going to talk about something that's so tangentially related, little bit off topic. I try as much as possible not to, if you've been following the case for a while, you're familiar with that. I don't always like win friends and influence people. I've amassed a number of trolls. And one of them was a family member. I've never met this person. She was never there, like, on our big annual visits with our dad. And at least not like where I was, but I was also much younger than the rest of them. And anyway, so she enjoyed, I don't want to give her too much airtime because, her allegations against me, I mean, they're tired. Most of them are things that I've already said. I wasn't close to Joe, like I've been really, really transparent. But someone had passed on some comments that she made with some of her Yaya sisters about, the typical kind of like, I'm not real family. And, just to let people know, like, if you're a troll listening to this, like you're going to have to try harder than that. Like growing up in foster care, like, it's not like I haven't heard that one before. And then I was forced to be adopted by my foster parents. It was a horrible, horrible situation. How I was forced to be adopted by them. But then even my biological siblings were angry with me that I allowed myself to be adopted. I was 14. They were all grown. And my sister was like, you're not a Ryan anymore. So I was just like, well, I'm in no man's land because I don't belong anywhere. So whatever. The typical thing of I'm not real family because I didn't know Tylee well enough. I, cut off contact with Joe or whatever. But there was one thing that was said in that exchange that I actually do want to address, and with information. So one of the things that was said was that it was something to the effect, I couldn't find the screenshot, but it was something to the effect of, and we know something like how he felt about her. And, up until this kind of unusual incident that happened, not incident, that's not the right word. It was, well, I'll just say what happened. Up until about a month ago, I questioned that myself, but like, there's only so much you can do with that. Like, we all made the best decisions we could with the information we had and where we were in the healing recovery process of our childhoods. And so, but I had an unusual event about a month ago. Someone who is involved with the investigation reached out to me and said that in the course of the investigation, they had discovered that my brother listed me as a beneficiary on his life insurance plan. It was a token amount. It was less than $10,000. But there had, for me, it was touching just because now, of course, there's always the possibility, there's the remote possibility he forgot he listed me. I don't really think for a guy who is as extremely detail oriented as Joe is, I don't think that that's possible. But also, I had this exchange with him. I think I was a young mom. I think it was when he came and visited my then husband and my kids, and that was an amazing visit. That was like, I think the year before he met Lori. But he had told me whenever it was, and it was face to face. He had told me, "Hey, I just want you to know I made you a beneficiary on my life insurance policy because I just want you to be taken care of if anything happened to me." And it was just like a touching moment. But I also know that like Joe likes to be kind of a hero and stuff. I picked this picture because I just found it, and it was amazing. That's my daughter. That's adorable, Tylee, and that is just such an amazing picture of Joe. This really captures Joe's personality. Like, I think he's more in it to win it than even my daughter is. But that I should explain that. That was part of our first family vacation with them. But our only family vacation with them. But so he told me this, and I just thought, oh, and I was like, oh, Joe, that's so sweet. But it seemed really unusual, sweet but unusual. But I just kind of tucked it away, and then he got married, and it certainly wasn't something that was like front of my thoughts, But when this person called me and this person explained, this person's in law enforcement. This is not, the person who did this is absolutely amazing for even doing this, because I wouldn't have ever known. When they sent the letter to me, I thought maybe it was an old address. It wasn't. It was my current address. And the woman said to me, people just think it's junk mail. And I was like, I'm sure that's it. But in my mind, and I'm not trying to be cloying. I'm not trying to give this live like a hum. Is there an echo? Is the echo gone?
Okay, so this was the end of the photographs that I wanted y'all to see and the text messages. I couldn't believe that. Excuse me. So apparently Lori didn't find out that Ryan had passed away for 2 weeks after he was gone. And then Lori waited an additional 2 weeks to contact Annie. And she told Annie, "Oh, sorry, I would have contacted you earlier, but this is a new phone number for you. I didn't have your phone number," or something like that. Well, how did Lori end up getting her phone number then if she didn't have it? And then secondly, like Annie said, she had emails. She could have sent her an email. There's all kinds of things she could have done. She could have called other family members, all kinds of things she could have done, but she didn't. She didn't even tell the gentleman's brother or sister that he was passed away. And I wonder if she did that, because then it would have been a total of 4 weeks since his passing. And was Lori hoping that his body would have been cremated by the time Annie found out, and couldn't, get any information from a coroner if there was no autopsy performed, if, that could all be rushed past. Now, no autopsy was performed, but Annie, I believe, was able to reach them before they disposed of the samples from Joe's tissues. And so that's why they were able to do the toxicology report. And give that information to Annie, is my understanding. So anyway, I don't know if that could be the case or not, why, Lori waited so long to tell Annie. or if she wanted to let memories grow cold in the neighborhood of, oh, you know what? I saw a blonde lady over there and a little girl, so hard to say. Let me stop sharing this and start sharing something else. It'll only let me share. Okay, so I guess I'll have to share my entire screen, which I don't like sharing my entire screen because then I can't see the chat. But, okay, looks like that's what I'm going to have to do. Wait, let me open this and see if that makes a difference. Sorry, guys, hang with me. Let me cancel and try it again. Here we go. Yeah, the pattern is there for sure. Listening to Annie reminds me of listening to Charles' sister too. It's like a pattern of behavior for Lori, for sure. Definitely a pattern established here. I think we can agree on that. Okay. So, y'all, I won't be able to read chat, but I wanted to read these to you. I don't know if you can read them or not, or how small the print is on your screen. So I'm going to go ahead and read them. So this first one is from Austin Police Department, dated 8/5/2007. Alex Cox, 39 years old at the time, was the sibling to Lori Noreen Vallow, 34 at the time. On 8/5/2007, Lori's ex-husband, Joseph Ryan, 49 at the time, finished a visit with his daughter in common with Lori, Tylee Ryan, who was 4 years old at the time, and was approached by Alex Cox, in a parking lot. Alex tased and assaulted Joseph. Joseph was able to get away from Alex and seek help. Austin police responded, and Alex was taken into custody, charged, and later convicted for the offense. On 12/15/2011, Alex completed the terms and conditions of the deferred adjudication and was released from custody, and all charges filed against him were dismissed. Phoenix Police Department, April 3rd, 2018. Joseph, 59, was found deceased in his residence. So this was 10 years after the assault by Alex. On East Baseline Road, Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix police investigated and did not note anything unusual. Lori and Tylee were living in Arizona at the time. I'm assuming that says Tylee. It's redacted. And Lori was notified of Joseph's death. Lori told Phoenix detectives she had not heard from Joseph in approximately 2 years. The medical examiner ruled Joseph's manner of death as natural at the age of 49. In 2020, the Phoenix Police Department reopened the investigation of Joseph Ryan's death. The investigation remains active. And they're saying it was closed again in January of 2021, and they have yet to reopen it. So this is in regard to a photo lineup. And I don't see the date here. It has to do with, oh, wait a minute. Is this has to do with the shooting at Melanie's husband, Brandon. wait, let me. Sorry. Yeah, that was for Brandon. And this again is for Brandon. I plan on doing more on this case. I think next I will focus on Brandon because I do believe that Melanie's going to be charged with at least attempted murder or conspiracy to commit murder on him. So I will go over that on another one. Lots of interesting stuff there. Yeah. Lots of good stuff. This is a picture of Tylee and Joseph Ryan, the gentleman that passed away that we've been talking about. Tylee, when she was a little girl, so sweet. This is a more recent, or this is a picture of, maybe not more recent, this is a picture of Joseph Ryan and Lori Vallow on their wedding day. Goodness, she really likes those palm trees in Hawaii, doesn't she? Man. All right. So that's all I've got on this for tonight. Let me go back and read the comments here. Yeah, Brandon did literally dodge a bullet. That is for sure. Didn't Lori wait to tell family children about Charles' death also? Yes, she did. I seem to remember her son Colby talking about not knowing Charles' death for a while after he was shot. That's correct. Yes, Alex tried to kill Joe. So many victims in this whole sordid story. R.I.P. Joe, Tylee, JJ, Charles, Tammy, and probably others we aren't even aware of. Yeah. Carolina G says they never found who killed Joe. No, in fact, they're saying it's not even a murder, maybe. They're saying that he died of natural causes, despite all of the evidence that we just showed. Yep, I believe all of the deaths are sus as well, Leah Weston, even Alex Cox. And the funny part about Alex Cox, what his death, it was just 5 days before he died, that or was it 7, that he had gone to the Mexican border to buy medications, or had gone to Mexico to buy medications. And then a week later, he's dead. And it sounds very similar to the type of death that Tammy had and the type of death that Joseph Ryan had. Only difference was Alex was awake. Joseph Ryan and Tammy were both in their beds. Yes, Alex Cox is Lori's brother. And they had inappropriate behaviors between the two of them, sexual behaviors that I will talk about later. His wife spoke about him, Alex's ex-wife. I thought that about Melanie too. She should be charged. Oh yeah, she's definitely, I agree. She's in it up to her neck, like you said. Joe's death was investigated, but I don't think it was investigated very seriously. I hope now they're looking more into it. Alex died supposedly from multiple blood clots in the lungs. He was at Zulema's house, the lady that he had married, and she was at work, but Zulema's adult son was home. Do you want to hear the 911 call, Carolina, that his son made, or that Zulema's son made? It's pretty interesting. He didn't even know who Alex was. And Alex and his mother were married. Yeah, I wonder how many more deaths too. Yep. Wonder if there are any church members. Joe and Alex's death need a lot more investigation. And I don't think, have they released all of the findings from Tammy Daybell's resumation? You know, right before Alex's death, Chad sent this really weird blessing to him, saying basically his time on this earth is over, but he'll be able to reap the benefits elsewhere, or something like that. And then he died the next day or 2 days after, maybe at tops. Really weird. Kelly says, well, what? But I have no idea. I already forgot what I was talking about when she said that. Wasn't Alex's death the day after Tammy was exhumed? Yes, I believe it was, Amber. And AJ says, Alex and Tammy have both been reported to have had a weird colored foam-like substance coming out of the sides of their mouth when they were found deceased. Yep. And could have been the same thing with Joe Ryan too, but they didn't find his body for 2 weeks. So anything that was there would have been contaminated, I guess I would say, from decomposition of his body. Kelly said, I just spit out my water. Lori and Alex, what? Yeah, they had an inappropriate sexual thing going on. Maybe not having sex. Nobody can know that for sure, aside from them two. But they would, I guess, Lori would jump on front of Alex and wrap her legs around him, and then they would simulate sexual movements. AJ says Zulema is as closed as a clam about Alex's death also. Oh, yeah. And when she got there, she wouldn't talk to, when she got home, you know, the emergency services were called and they were all there when she got there, and she wouldn't talk to anybody. She immediately asked for an attorney. Now, why would you do that if your husband, you weren't even there? You know, it's weird. Yeah, Lori's still getting mental health care rehabilitation. I don't know if it was a sexual relationship and on and on. I shouldn't call it that, but they touched each other sexually. Alex touched her breast, I guess on a regular basis, and they would touch inappropriately. Let's just put it that way, and do inappropriate things. In fact, it was so bad that Alex's wife said, well, you know, do you think that this is appropriate behavior for siblings? Like if we had children, a boy and a girl, would you think this was okay? And he said, yes, he did. Huh. AJ says, Chad and Lori now have charges of homicide for Tammy Daybell. Oh, I knew they had charges for conspiracy to commit homicide. I did not know they had charges for homicide. They must have found a lot of evidence. Yeah. Because I thought, oh, well, maybe they found text or emails or something that allowed them to seek charges of conspiracy, but not actual charges of homicide. So if they have charges of homicide, then that means they did find something. Yeah, Kelly, I'd be happy to play the 911 call. Yeah, sure, Anon. Yeah, I'll play it. The autopsy report for Tammy hasn't fully been released yet. So that'll be interesting. I think so too. It will be. Piper, you are doing a wonderful job of covering all the questions and thoughts on this case. Thank you. Awesome discussion. Great job, chatters. This is how a good YouTube chat should go. Yes. Thank you, AJ. That's kind of you. Thank you. Yeah, Zulema's in it up to her neck, Leah. I'm waiting on those charges too. Okay, let me find that 911 call. I have to remember where I heard it. Give me a second, because I might have put it on my JJ and Tylee playlist. So let me look. I'm looking. Oh, look, you guys. Here, I'll play this while I'm looking. I had this on my playlist. Hold on. Got to share my screen.
Hey everyone, Eric Grossarth here with EastIdahoNews.com, coming to you from our newsroom. This afternoon on Thursday, there was major developments in the case against Chad Daybell. Prosecutors filed their notice of intent
Let me
saying that
rewind.
they will seek the death penalty against the man who is accused of killing his former wife and his new wife's two children.
Okay, here we
Hey
go.
everyone, Eric Grossarth here with EastIdahoNews.com, coming to you from our newsroom. This afternoon on Thursday, there was major developments in the case against Chad Daybell. Prosecutors filed their notice of intent saying that they will seek the death penalty against the man who is accused of killing his former wife and his new wife's two children. Now, a Fremont County grand jury indicted Chad in May on these charges that included first-degree murder, which is in Idaho punishable by death if convicted. Now, prosecutors had 60 days from the day that Chad pleaded not guilty to those charges to file this document, which that deadline was coming up this weekend. Now, prosecutors in these documents cite the reasons why they feel that the death penalty is warranted. So I'm going to read to you right now the reasons why prosecutors filed the intent to seek the death penalty against Chad Daybell. They allege that the alleged murders were committed for financial gain. The alleged murders were especially heinous, atrocious, cruel, or manifesting exceptional depravity. The defendant exhibited an utter disregard for human life, and the defendant has exhibited a propensity to commit murder and will probably constitute a continuing threat to society. So after this was being filed, we got a statement from the prosecutors in this case, Special Prosecutor Rob Wood and Fremont County Prosecutor Lindsay Blake. And in this statement, they said, "Today we filed our notice of intention to seek the death penalty against Chad Daybell. Our process in making this determination was lengthy and comprehensive. We conferred with those immediate family members of J.J. Vallow, Tylee Ryan, and Tammy Daybell, who have indicated a willingness to speak with us and allowed them an opportunity to provide their input if they wished to do so. The ultimate decision to seek capital punishment rests with the state, and after completing the entire process, we determined that the nature and magnitude of these crimes warrant the possibility of the highest possible punishment. This determination only applies to Chad Daybell. Now, that last little part there about it only applying to Chad Daybell, Lori's case is stayed. She was committed to the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare after a mental health professional deemed her not competent for trial, and the judge sent her off there to receive some mental health treatment before her case can proceed. So they'll come back and review that at a future date. But again, they can't file this intent until she's entered any kind of plea right now, and the case is stayed, so no filings, anything like that. So Chad, what's next for him? He has a pretrial conference in September that will happen before this already scheduled trial that was set for November. But data that I've looked at for several cases that have the death penalty on them take much longer at this point, several more months, years even, for a death penalty case to at least reach trial and come to some sort of conclusion. So again, we have all of these documents on eastidahonews.com. We'll provide updates as they become available.
Death investigation. I'm just trying to get, I guess, any type of insight that you might have.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot there. About maybe a year or two ago, Lori started.
This video, and I will play this another time, but this is a 45-minute conversation with Adam Cox, which is the brother of both Lori and Alex. And he says Lori and Alex set Charles up to be murdered. It's a really interesting conversation if you haven't heard it. Yeah, Lori was stable enough to live life for months after she helped kill her children. She was stable enough to evade the police, witty and strategic enough to make excuses that would buy her time over and over. Obviously, she knew what she had done was wrong. Otherwise, she would have just told the police, well, I killed them for their own protection. You know, the devil's after them. So, yeah, Adam's interview was really good, wasn't it, Amber? So, I'm not buying any of this crap that she didn't know what she was doing. If she didn't know what she was doing was bad, she wouldn't have hidden it so well. Just my opinion. Okay, so I'm going to share the 911 call. Why am I not?
$12, 15 hours, 20 minutes, 19 seconds. December 12th, 2019, 15 hours, 20 minutes, 19 seconds.
911, where is your emergency?
Hi, I need an ambulance to... Yes.
Why do you need an ambulance?
I have a older male, a middle-aged male.
He is breathing?
Yes, he's breathing, but very, very highly breathing.
Okay, let me transfer you the medics. Do not hang up.
Okay.
Is it just due to a drug
Fire and
overdose
medical,
or
what is
anything?
the address of your emergency?
Go over with it.
Caller, are you on the line? Hello, is
Hello?
anyone there?
Yes, this is. I'm here.
Okay, you're at for.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, what is the emergency?
I have a older male here named Alex. He just passed out here on my bathroom.
Okay, is he awake
Are you
right
breathing?
now?
I think he's passed out.
Okay, you think he's unconscious?
Yes.
Okay, is he breathing normally, like you can see his chest rising and falling? Hello?
I hope so.
I have the paramedics on the way, but I need you to try to help me with some information while they're driving there to help him. Okay?
Okay.
How old is he?
He seems to be in his 40s.
Okay. Do you know him?
No, it's my mother's boyfriend.
Okay. And how old are you?
I'm 25.
Okay. I have the paramedics on the way, so he's in the restroom right now.
Correct.
Gilbert, can we get you started?
I'm already en route.
All right, thank you. Okay, is he on his back or on his stomach? Where is he at?
He's on his side.
Okay. Can you lay him flat on his back on the ground?
I'll try. It's just there's feces there, and I'm trying to just keep cool right now.
You said he's what?
There's feces on the ground.
Okay. I know that's gross, but if we can just go ahead and get him flat on his back, I want to make sure he's breathing, because if he's not, we're going to do a few things.
Gotcha.
Did you say he's cool, like cold?
Alex, we gotta get you on your back.
Does he seem more awake or more asleep?
He's more passed out.
Okay. Is he opening his eyes or moving at all?
He's breathing.
Okay. Is he breathing normally, like his chest is rising and falling? He's not making any weird sounds?
Yeah, he's making a very exhale sound like.
Okay. If he's doing that, we need to start CPR, so I need you to get him flat on his back on the ground.
Okay. I'll do that.
Let me know when he's flat on his back, and we're going to give you instructions, okay?
Okay.
What is your first name? Okay.
I don't think I could do that, man.
I know this is difficult, but you're only helping him, okay? I know, the paramedics.
I don't think I could
what
do
is your
I have
name?
Anxiety and depression.
Okay, what's your name?
Anxiety and depression, I can't.
What is your name?
My name's Joseph.
Joseph? Okay, Joseph. The best thing for us to do for him right now is to so if you'll just take I know it's not ideal, but you're doing a really good job by helping him if you can do that, okay?
Oh. Yo, Alex. Alex. He's not breathing. No. No, he's too big.
I'm not sure if you guys heard that noise. I don't know if you know what agonal breathing is. So agonal breathing is when you are in the process of actively dying. You're very close to passing away. A lot of times once someone starts agonal breathing, really there's most times no return, even if they're in the hospital when it happens. You can intubate them, and in some cases you can restore um, cardiopulmonary function. But typically when we see agonal breathing, that's a really bad sign. And so, yeah, Kelly, you had to be rushed to the hospital, blood clots behind your knee after ACL reconstructions. Yes, it's very painful. I've had a blood clot too. I'll rewind it just a bit. I don't know if you heard that agonal breathing, but some people, when they call into 911 or when they're explaining it to the ER, they'll say, well, it sounds like he was snoring, but it's not snoring. Sometimes you'll heard it called snoring respirations, but the actual medical term for it is agonal, agonal breathing. And yes, I'll rewind it, Carolina. I'll probably rewind it a couple times.
No. No, he's too big.
Okay, just try to get him on his back.
Wow.
Good job by helping him if you can do that, okay?
Oh.
Right there. Did you hear it? I'll play it again. I'm going to play it a few times, okay?
Okay.
Oh.
Do that, okay?
Oh.
Okay. Were you all able to hear that right at the very end? Yeah, it's a terrible sound to hear. It's even worse to see in real life. AJ, thank you, Piper, for explaining that. Is it at all like the death rattle? Oops, my screen scrolled up on me. Is it at all like the death rattle? Or is that the final breaths? Please and thank you. The death rattle is different. So the death rattle can last for days or weeks. What that is when someone is close to death and they've slipped into like an unconscious state, and fluids, because they're lying down, accumulate in the back of their throat. They can still breathe past them, but you'll hear them bubbling. And so that fluid bubbling in the back of the throat, that's what people refer to as the death rattle, because it sounds like a rattling noise, when really what it is saliva and air moving through it. And the reason that happens is because they can't swallow because they're unconscious. So most times we'll suctioning doesn't help the death rattle a whole lot. It's further back than what you can safely suction. So we'll give a medication called scopolamine. It's the same medication that's given for people who get motion sickness, like on cruises or flights or driving. It's a little patch that goes behind the ear. And scopolamine actually will dry up bodily secretions And so the death rattle itself doesn't bother the individual experiencing it whatsoever. Doesn't affect their breathing, doesn't bother them at all, as far as we can tell. But the death rattle bothers family members and friends that are in the room. So that's why we use the scopolamine, not because it's going to make the individual who's passing more comfortable, but because it'll make the family more comfortable and make, hopefully, the situation a little less traumatic. But that noise we heard is something else, and that's called agonal breathing, and that happens with brain damage. So, like lack of oxygen to the brain, or what is called anoxic brain damage, which means brain damage from lack of oxygen. So, when you're not breathing correctly, your brain becomes starved of oxygen. And the last part of the brain to die is the brain stem that supports your vital functions like your heartbeat and breathing. So it's basically in the throes of trying to keep working, the brain stem is, but it's not functioning at its full capacity, and that's why the respiration's slow and why they're not effective breaths. So even though if you hear somebody agonal breathing, it's like, oh, well, yeah, they're breathing, it's just a weird noise. Those are not effective breaths, and they still require CPR. All right, let's finish this 911 call.
Yo, Alex. Alex. He's not breathing. No. No, he's too big.
Okay, just try to get him on his back so we can do chest compression.
My mother just got here.
Okay, give her the phone then.
So, did she say the mother just got there?
Yeah.
Come here.
And we're coming on Mineral right now.
Really
we're
bad.
almost there.
It's really bad. Come upstairs, in the bathroom. We need to get him on his back.
Can you put your mom on the phone?
She's right here. You're on speaker.
Okay, ma'am, the paramedics are pulling up, but in the meantime, we need him to get flat on his back, and we need to give him chest compressions, okay?
Chest compression. Wait. But
Does she know how to do CPR?
yes. She knows how.
Okay.
How far are you?
We're pulling up out front right now, so they're grabbing their equipment and they're coming in. Are you on the first floor or the second?
We're on the second floor.
Second floor in the bathroom?
Yes.
Okay, and the door is unlocked?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, do you see the paramedics now?
Yes.
Okay, Joseph, you did a good job. I know that was really scary, but thank you for your help, okay?
Joseph,
Okay,
before you hang up, I need your last name.
Okay.
Joseph, let the paramedics do their business and tell me what your last name is.
Lopez.
Joseph, what's your last name?
Lopez.
Okay. And what's your date of birth, Joseph? Alex's last name.
I don't know.
You don't know his name?
No.
Okay. All right. Do you let the officer in?
Yes.
Okay. Sounds good. I'm going to let you go. Bye-bye.
December 12th, 2019, 15 hours, 27 minutes, 27 seconds.
Okay. Let me read this chat. AJ, can anyone help me with the question? Well, I hope so, maybe. Carolina G, did Zulema kill him? I don't know. I almost wonder if he took whatever poison himself that was possibly given to Tammy and Joseph Ryan. AJ says her question is it true that Zulema and Alex only knew each other for a couple of weeks, then got married? Okay, and then he dies like 2 weeks after they were married. Please and thank you. Yes. So I believe they had only known one another for 3 weeks. They got married on November 29th, I believe, one day before Melanie and her new husband, Ian Pulowski. And then, so that was November, and then he died in December. I think the 911 call just said, let me see.
His last name. Okay. Sounds good. I'm going to let you go. Bye-bye.
December 12th, 2019, 15 hours, 27 minutes, 27 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. I'm going to let you go. Bye-bye.
December 12th.
So it was December 12th, 3:30 or so in the afternoon. So they were married on the 30th of November, and then he died December 12th, and Tammy Daybell's body was exhumed December 11th, I believe. Yeah, I don't know his last name. Well, it's your mom's last name. So I don't know how hard that would be to remember, but I'm going with he didn't know they were even married because he called Alex his mom's boyfriend. When were they going to break it to him? I mean, his son lived with them. So weird. Yeah, maybe that's why his son didn't know. Yeah, the dates are mind-blowing, aren't they? Do you think it could be coincidence? That's a lot of coincidence. Did son know? Oops. Oh my goodness. I hope I didn't just put somebody in timeout. I didn't know you could do that from Restream. Did son know they were married? No, I don't believe he did. I mean, if he did, he didn't say it in that 911 call. He said, it's my mother's boyfriend, Alex. And they asked his last name, and he didn't know his last name. And he didn't know his age. So I don't know if the son even knew that they were married. But anyway, hard to say. Well, I appreciate you guys listening in with me. I think it's important to bring awareness to Joseph Ryan's case. Last I heard, his case was closed. They were not looking into murder or anything like that any longer. I'm hoping they will reopen the case now with everything that we know. Chad said in a text to Zulema he was told her and Alex were supposed to marry. Well, we don't believe Chad, do we? Lots of secrets, Kelly. Secrets get you in trouble. I mean, some secrets you have to keep, for your job or what have you. But secrets in your personal life, it tends to get you in trouble. AJ, do we know if Alex had any visits or edible gifts, maybe from Lori and Chad, just before he died? No hard accusations. So we don't know of any, I don't know of any in-person visits from either of them or gifts. But I do know that Alex went to Mexico to buy medications, undisclosed medications. We don't know what they were. Just 5 to 7 days prior to him passing away. Also, Chad called, Chad wrote out a blessing to Alex the day before or the day of him passing away, and made it sound like his job on earth here was now done for this round, and that he will, where he is going, he'll be even more of a help than he is already. AJ says, I think Alex's death will definitely be reopened. Mm-hmm. With all the deaths around him, Lori, and Dumbbell going to court. Yep. Amber E., I was given that medication you were talking about after surgery a few months ago for nausea. Yep. I had that little patch. Interesting to hear about its other uses. Yep. Use it for post-operative nausea as well. Alex's age. He was 5 years older than Lori. Hold on, let me think about this. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think he was in his 50s. Wait, Kelly, we should collaborate and write Chad a blessing. Oh my gosh, and send it to him in jail? Oh, we could really get some snarky crap in there. That'd be fun. Leah, yes, it sounded like Chad was telling him his time. Yeah, you heard it too and got that same impression? Yeah, that's what I thought too. When we talk about Alex, I'll read that blessing. Okay, guys, I really am going for real this time. And my next video I want to put out is just going to be a really short one. It is going to be a stream, but it's going to be a short stream. And it is about Summer Wells. It's about the red Toyota. I think that we've just kind of discovered maybe where it was. And I think you guys will be surprised. So make sure you stay tuned for that. I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong. There's video evidence, and I've made some comparison to other things. And so I really think that I know, personally, I think I know. I don't know about the police, but I think I know why we're looking for that red Tacoma. And keep this in mind. If something had happened to Summer on their property, say she passed away, and they took her in their vehicle somewhere, or let's say she was passed away in the back of the vehicle when they were driving home, like some people think. Well, the body only needs to be deceased for an hour. Actually, 20 minutes, I think, is the consistent hits, is when dogs start getting consistent hits, 20 minutes after somebody's passed away. So, and then they get really consistent hits at an hour. So they had dogs there. So if there was a cadaver scent in their vehicles, the dogs would have picked up on that. So that might explain why Candace might not have been driving their vehicle. And the video that I saw, she was driving a red pickup truck. And I did a comparison, and it does really look like a Toyota. So that's interesting. Where did she borrow that from? Green Eyes says Jody Sue's mom owns a red Tacoma. Andy's uncle wrote, so everybody in Jody Sue's family owns a red Tacoma. Weird. Anyway, she could have borrowed it from them if they had a red Tacoma. Kelly says, I found some trucks. Wonder if they are the same. I don't know. That would be interesting. I would like to know that myself. Bye, Green Eyes. Thanks for popping in. So that'd be interesting, but that's going to be my next video. I'm going to try to get that out tomorrow. And again, it won't be very long, but just getting straight to the point with the photos and videos that I have. And I drive a Toyota, and I did a comparison against my vehicle, so I'll show you that as well. So good night, everybody. Love you guys. I'm all in for the blessing. Yeah, it'll be live. I can't announce my lives in advance through Restream. Through StreamYard, when I schedule a live in advance, it'll put the video on my YouTube channel and it'll say what time it's going to be playing. But with Restream, I haven't found that option. It might be there and I'm missing it, but I'm not finding it. So anyway, yes, it will be live, but there won't be a video on the page to be able to click like remind me, but I will put it in Discord when I figure out what time it's going to be. The ladder rack false, probably, maybe. Thank you, AJ. You rock. So, all right, night, guys, and thank you for coming. And I will see you guys all very soon. Good night. Oh, can you put the heads up for your lives and your Discord? Yes, I will. The only thing I can't do, AJ, I can't put the video link there. You know how usually I put the video link and the time and all that? It doesn't allow me to do that with Restream. It doesn't give me a video link until I actually start the live. So today I went in and then went back to Discord when it was playing and put it in Discord, and I saw you had already done it. So thank you, AJ. But I will put like a little thumbnail picture up with a little like approximate time and all that good stuff. I screwed up on the time for tonight. I had to go pick up my son, and it ended up getting crazy. So I was late getting here tonight, but I will do better tomorrow night, hopefully. If my son doesn't work, I didn't ask him. But all right, good night. See you guys next time. Love each other. Love yourselves. You know the story. See ya.